Good evening and welcome to the Town Council Chambers. It is Monday, June 4th. We're having our Town Council meeting. It's 7:04. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilor Auclair. Councilor Carrasco.
Present.
Councilor Clemens.
Present.
Councilor DePietro. Councilor Manna.
Present.
Councilor Morales.
Present.
Councilor Nash.
Present.
Councilor Steves.
Present.
So we have 6 present. Thank you. Agenda item number 3, vote to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous, 6. And now, agenda item number 4 is a public hearing on water and sewer rate presentation by our town manager, Mr. Sanangelo.
Thank you. First, I'm going to start off and thank you all for being here tonight for this public hearing, and I'm sure for the meeting that's following. First, I'd like to read the notice that was put in the newspaper as a result of doing this public hearing. The town manager of the town of Southbridge will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 4th, 2018 at 7 p.m. in Council Chambers, 2nd floor, Town Hall, on the proposed rate changes for water and sewer changes effective with all bills issued after July 1st, 2018. Those wishing to speak on this matter will be given an opportunity to do so. The proposed rates are on display in the office of the town manager, and it's signed, of course, by me, Ron Sanangelo, the town manager. So tonight we're looking to get your input. I'll let people know right up front that the proposed increase in water rates is 1%, the same amount as last year. And this year the sewer rates are 2%, which is significantly lower than last year. We're going to start off with a presentation by our town assessor, William Canoyer, and we'll give a brief presentation on the water and sewer rates.
Good evening, thank you. Let me get this. Okay, so today's presentation will just go over in general what goes into the rates and specifically what the changes are going to be this year. The rates are really a simple formula. You have your fixed cost and your variable cost, that's your total cost, and you have to have revenues that match that. So what are the fixed costs? Typically they're the debt service, what we have, the payment on the debt that we have to issue to rebuild facilities and equipment and so forth. They're the capital improvements. They're the indirect cost. Indirect cost, for those who don't know, are we have a contractor who manages the water system and the sewer system, but the town does all of the billing and the supervision and the management for that. So the indirect costs are monies that are paid for out of the enterprise funds to my office for my input and my staff's input, the collections office for issuing the bills and collecting them, town manager for his supervision, DPW, and various other departments. Contracts, again, I just mentioned the contractors who operate those systems. Those are fixed costs each year. The variable costs are things like utilities, based on the amount of consumption, the utilities, the electricity mainly. Treatment chemicals and supplies are a variable cost. And the consumption, well, how does that figure into it? The overall consumption impacts the rates. The more you use, the more of those chemicals and electricity we use. The greater, on the plus side though, the greater the consumption, that moderates the rate because the fixed costs are stable, the variable costs aren't quite as much, so the more consumption means more revenue you get and it only incurs a little bit more of a cost. The lesser the consumption, the greater the rate, less revenue coming in. So it's important to note individual households and businesses all pay. They use different amounts of water and sewer services. Our rate structure is designed so the first 500 cubic feet of both water and sewer are at a very low consumption rate. The next 3,500 cubic feet of both go up to a moderately higher consumption rate, and that is typically what most single families use in those two lowest tiers. Then there's a third consumption rate over 15,000 cubic feet, and then there's another higher consumption rate, and then there is a Each one goes marginally higher, and the highest rate is over 100,000 cubic feet. So the customers who use over 100,000 cubic feet pay a very much higher proportional rate. So the rate changes that we're talking about tonight, they're based on increased cost, and the fixed costs that have increased is the capital improvements budgets has gone up. Contracted increases with our vendors who operate the systems. There's always state mandates and increased regulations that contribute to that, and the indirect costs go up a little bit each year. So the 2019 sewer budget, the total is $4,548,655, and that's an increase of $46,391 over last year. Down below that, you can see the costs that have gone up. These are the changes, and the costs, some that have gone down, but in the aggregate, they're an increase over last year of $46,000. On the water budget, again, $3,894,683 is the total budget for this year, and that's a change of $10,448, and you can see the changes down below. Bottom line, as the town manager has already said, the water rates are going up 1% and the sewer rates are going up 2%. How does this affect people? Well, this is a typical single-family user here. The median consumption amount is typically about 1,400 cubic feet per quarter. It goes up or down a little bit off of that, but for comparison, I like to keep the same. So the current water charge right now before the increase is $116.35, as you can see, per quarter. Current sewer is $143.18. If you have both, it's $259.53 at that level of consumption. So right below that with the two increases, you see the new quarterly charge based on the same consumption will be $263.61. And so that's an increase per quarter of $1.17 for water, $2.91 for sewer, or whatever that is, $4.08 per quarter for both. And that's pretty much it. Be glad to answer any specific questions if anybody has any for me, and I'll put that on the website so people can see it.
Thank you, Will, and please just hang tight for some questions in case there are any. Just so that citizens understand, we have a normal budget, an operating budget. The money comes from what we call our general fund. Both of these accounts are described as enterprise accounts, which means they're funded by the money it's paid in by customers. It's not part of our regular budget. I just wanted people to understand why this is separate and why these costs are separate than what you would get in your regular tax rates. With that, it's open for questions, and anyone who would like to address, well, the town council can speak as well first. If any members of the town council have any questions first. Councilor Manna.
Thank you. Through you. To Mr. Knoyer, when you say, when you talk about the single family usage, you base it on typical family, you said. So I understand the single family, but what are you averaging? How many people in the household when you base it on that?
I'm not averaging that. Basically what I'm doing is taking all of the single family customers that we have in Southbridge and in Charlton, and just statistically the median user is about 1,400 cubic feet, and then I calculate the bill based on that. Some are less, some are more, but that's the median user.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have questions before I open up to the public? Councilor Steves.
Yeah, I have a quick question about looking at the water fees themselves. I'm curious why we charge for curb cock shutoff for people who are scheduling their shutoff, but we don't charge for that, but we charge for turning them back on.
Why do we not charge for people who are scheduled shutoff?
I know. I understand why we. I
didn't hear the question. That's why I wanted.
I'm curious about if you've got the water fees in front of you. I'm referring to item number 3 and item number 5. Okay. One's labeled the curb cock shutoff, normal working hours, specifically for people who are turning off, who scheduled by request to turn it off, and that there's no charge there, and I don't have a problem with that. And I'm curious about why we do charge them to turn it back on again, if I'm reading this correctly. Okay,
so we don't charge to turn it off. That was a change of approximately 2010 or so forth. So people who wanted to have their water meter have it shut off, so they might go to Florida or go away for some period.
And I have no problem with that. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
So we did not want to discourage them for doing that if they had a leak or some kind of thing when they were away. We used to have a charge for that and also to turn it back on. There are costs incurred to do both of those services. And that's why there's a charge for the second.
Is it for the time it takes to somebody from the water department to actually go to their house and find their meter and do whatever they have to do with it?
Yes, it's a
Is that what it
service
is?
provided, and that's the cost for it.
Okay.
Councilor Manna.
Thank you. I just want to go for what Councilor Steve said. Looking at 3A, it looks like it would be different from a schedule because it's either delinquent or if something was damaged. So if somebody actually scheduled,
Yeah, I don't have them in front of me, and I can
Okay.
get them, but I can't answer that. If it's not scheduled, it might be a shut-off for non-payment. There's a charge for that. We're not going to waive the fee when we have to do
Right, I
that.
get it, but if it's a schedule just to go, if they're going out of town for 3 months and they don't want any leaks or anything, so I was
Thank you.
just, it just looks, what he was saying, it just looks like, I can understand why you would charge a fee, that's all. The water, for turning it back on for delinquency, or shutting it off for delinquency and damages and stuff.
Right. The biggest part of that is there was a fee previously to turn it off at any time when somebody called. But again, we wanted to not discourage people for shutting their water off, for winter or whenever they were going to close up the property in case there was a leak, something froze. So that's one of the reasons that we removed the fee for that. But there is a cost incurred for all of this stuff.
Councilor DePietro.
Regarding the number 5 meter test, a customer request, if a resident had a question as to all of a sudden there was a spike in their water bill and found out the meter was in fact flawed, I would presume that the town wouldn't charge them.
Yeah,
the
that's
test,
correct.
would they?
On item 16, what it says is meter test at customer's request, statutory period, no charge. Outside of statutory period.
16 final sewer charge?
Oh, no, we're on water. You're not, I have the.
I'm
do you
sorry.
want-
No, it's in
So if in fact the meter is flawed,
I beg your pardon?
if in fact the meter is flawed, you wouldn't charge the
Exactly
folks
right.
for... Oh, I didn't catch that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Clare.
Thank you, through you. I think I might have answered my own question. Is the fire protection service charge, is that sprinklers?
It is, and it's based on the meter size because to provide the fire protection, the town has to have that capacity reserved in whatever the meter size is for that amount of water.
So somebody with a sprinkler system with a 4-inch pipe size gets charged a quarterly service rate of $167.43 flat,
That's correct.
whether they use it or not.
That's correct.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
for having that capacity reserved. If I may add, all of these the rates here, and for the public as well. So what we're adjusting is the basic consumption charges and the basic, it's called a base charge, based on your meter size. All these other things we're talking about right here, with the exception of the fire protection, those haven't changed in several years, probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Those haven't changed from last year to this year, and they're not changing now. Okay, just the base rates. For you, that's the front page on the water and the sewer rates.
Thank you. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. That was actually part of my question. I was wondering if there are any changes to the water and sewer rates beyond the consumption charges. How about in any of the schedules of fees? And a second part of that question, Will, is every year we see documents that look like this. I would love to see a table so it's a lot more easy to compare year over year. I have 7 or 8 years worth of these, and it's quite frustrating to go back and try to trace them back. I think that it would be really nice if we could have a slide or a table that shows year over year, or just a real simple schedule of how we
Sort of
compare.
like a budget presentation where
Yeah,
you're seeing fiscal year 18, 17 with it, so a 3-year look back maybe?
Yeah, certainly. I think that'd be wonderful. And I know every year that I've been coming to water and sewer rate hearings, it comes up how we compare to other communities, and I don't know that you're prepared to address that tonight, but I do wonder if we have taken a look at the rate survey that that particular consultant engineer out of Western Mass publishes every year.
I think that's Ty and Bond or Weston and Sampson. I see it every year. My recollection is we're in the middle of the pack on that, but I'm not an expert on water and sewer rates. I'm an assessor, and taxes are really my specialty. So I would think we're in the middle of the pack. It's all based on consumption. And I can tell you, as I analyze those things in there, it's really hard to do an apples-to-apples kind of thing, because some of them don't charge. There's no fee, but then you're paying a high consumption amount. It's really difficult to compare apples to apples in all of these communities. But to answer your first question, so the rates that are changing are the basic consumption rates and the meter charges on the base rates. And on the water side, they're going up at 1%. On the sewer side, they're going up 2%. On the sewer side, one adjustment we made this year is we've actually lowered one of the rates. So unmetered sewer accounts, previously there's no way to meter their usage, and so based on rate studies they would go up. You know, a baseline was attained and they would go up at the same changes as everyone else. Well, we examined that in a lot of detail this year, and we felt that that had gone higher proportionately. So that's a rate, actually, if it's unmetered sewer, and I think there's about 80 customers, 80 or 81 customers. So they're actually going down from $199 to, I forget the exact amount, I think it's either 164 or 166. So there's a little relief there, and that's actually in the interest of fairness. There is one other charge that is different than last year, the only other one on there. And so unmetered sewer accounts, we also want to give the people the ability to fine-tune that even further. So if they wanted to put a metering device onto their well so that we could meter that, the water department would have to inspect it. They'd have to have a plumber do it. The water department would have to inspect it, you know, all the appropriate permits, of course. And there'll be a charge of $10 to read per quarter to read an unmetered sewer account, because the water company has to read it. They ordinarily wouldn't go to those places. So that's the only, and I know I'm diving into the minutiae here, but you asked the question, I want to give you the correct answer on it.
Sure, thank you for that. And I have one other question, Mr. Town Manager, if you'll indulge me. I noticed that Mr. Gregoire is here from the water company, and to kind of jump off from what Councilor DePietro might have been asking, is it your experience that we have found that any water meter reading device within the system ever reads high?
Rick, did you want to come up and answer that? Do you have an answer for that particular question?
I'll give my opinion quickly before Steve. Before Steve does. Virtually all of my experience, maybe both hands in 20 years, less than 10 times, I have not seen one read fast. Those 10 times, they were 102% or 103% instead of 100%. It's like the one out of those 10, but Steve can answer it better than me.
Sure, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can agree. When we have had requests to test meters, we have a calibrated test bench in our shop, and they've always been within 1%, normally slow. And water meters will usually slow down over time. They'll never pick up. It's a physical device that spins, and they slow down over time from buildup and sediment and all that. Yeah, I think the whole time I've been here, I've seen one meter that came in 0.5% high in the 13 years I've been here.
Thank you very much.
Just a comment. Steve is a representative of Whitewater, the vendor who runs our water plant, just so people understand who is speaking. Councilor Clements?
First, I wanted to agree with Councilor Nash in terms of being able to have especially the fees, because you could also make a notation of when the last change to those fees were, along with the increases. I did call at the office and ask for another copy because I couldn't find mine to compare last year to this year, but I really needed was the 16 to 17 because that was where the big jump was. But I would agree that it would be very helpful to have something that we could compare to, or the council can compare to. A couple of things. Also, I agree with what you've said, only from the numerous times that I was asked over the last 9 years about that question of meter readings. And I've asked that question to the water company, to our DPW and every time it seems to have come out, every time they test, they would be low and not high. And as frustrating for our homeowners that might seem, wondering where their water's going, generally it's the excess toilets running, tenants' toilets running, drips from faucets. You'd be amazed at how much money you can waste with that. On that note, if you have the ability to change to low flush toilets or any water-saving devices, and the other option, of course, that we've talked about over the years, a number of years, we made it when sewer started to go up more, or when we leveled sewer to water at one time. As you can recall, sewer was very low, water was high, and then we started to bring sewer up, and now, of course, we've gone beyond, is exception meters for your outside water usage. If you have a sprinkler system, if you do a lot of watering, car washing and such outside, it might be in your best interest to look into an exception meter, which is a specific second meter that is connected by a plumber to your outside piping, your outside plumbing, so that you can, all the water that goes from that meter would not be charged a sewer charge because it's going into the ground. And so when they read the meter, they would deduct the usage that is for outside usage, and that can be a tremendous savings. I did do some looking in on that because of this hearing, and right now local plumber was estimating $500 to $600, which sounds expensive. There's a meter involved, and then there's the plumbing involved, so depending on whether you're two faucets, 4 faucets, and where they are located on your property, but an average they gave me would be $500 to $600 to install. It could be lower or higher depending on your plumber, of course, but that would save you over time. If you're a heavy user in the filling your pool or those types of things, it could save you a tremendous amount of money over the years if you're going to stay in your home. Also adds great resale value. Any of these changes, of course, in plumbing can add great resale value to a home. So I know for me personally, an exception meter, something I put in years ago, has made a huge difference with the increases in sewer especially. So just some thoughts.
Thank you. Any other questions from town councilors?
If I may, I have one more comment. You just reminded me. In this job, whenever we send out water and sewer bills, invariably every quarter, my clerk, when he's sending them out, he'll bring it to my attention. He'll say, Will, this bill is up, this normal $200 bill is now $800. And the reason is there's a leak and the meter keeps ticking. And I've seen it with friends. I've seen it with an old rental apartment that I used to have where I got the bill. My clerk said to me, Will, check your meter out. And it's like, darn, it cost me hundreds of dollars. So anybody listening to this, pay attention to those things. If something is dripping or it's usually not a really huge visible leak. If a toilet is kind of running and you have to click the handle or something, that's costing you a lot of money, and it could be costing you hundreds and hundreds of dollars a quarter. I urge anybody, take a look at it, get it fixed immediately, because I see what happens. It's hundreds of dollars. So, that's what I would take the most important thing from what I'm saying here today.
Again, any other questions from any of the town councilors? Well, first I'd just like, go ahead, sure.
Because the bill you're getting is from behind. See, most people realize that, but some don't. So all that leaking that's gone on for months, you won't notice it until you're already into the next cycle and there's more leaking going. So if you hear it, fix it.
All right, first I want to thank town council. The questions that were asked tonight are very, very good, and it allows the people who are going to be watching this through public access to hear some of these answers. So appreciate all your comments so that people can actually hear what some of these issues are. With that, I'd like to ask any of the citizens that are in the room, would they like to come up and speak to this issue? Please give your name and your address just for the record.
Good evening, Mike Marchetti, 120 Marie Avenue. I just have a couple real quick questions. First of all, we have a drive-by meter in our house, but is somebody actually coming by and driving by and checking our meters? I don't see anybody in the neighborhood checking do they do that every month? Every quarter?
It looks like Heather would like to answer that. Heather, when I will do it? All right. Heather Blakely is our DPW director. She will address the answer to that question.
Right. We do drive-by meter readings every quarter. It takes us about 2 days to read the whole town and Charlton. And then what will happen is they'll do an exception report and figure out what meter didn't read, and we'll go back out and make sure that we get the readings for those meters. So they're done on a quarterly basis, so 4 times a year.
Mike, did that address your question, or if you have other questions, you okay?
Thank you. My other question is just, well, not really a question. The variable costs, is there any, things like treatment chemicals and supplies, is that something that the town can take control of? I mean, or is that part of the contract? They are ordering the supplies and chemicals and things like that, but wouldn't it be cheaper for the town to take control of that? Just a thought.
Sure, and again, ask the DPW director to answer that question. She's, just so people understand, the DPW director provides oversight to both the water and sewer departments. Heather, if you would.
So in both the water and sewer departments, there are certain chemicals and certain operational chemicals that are part of the contract, so that's under their control. And then there are certain chemicals, because of changes at both plants, that weren't included as part of the contract, which are under our control. So we're both basically already doing both. Some of them were part of the contract and some of them weren't. Both contractors have a very active bidding system for themselves, so they get very good deals on their chemicals. It probably would not be cheaper for the town to buy those chemicals ourselves, because we wouldn't be buying in bulk like they are for all their other treatment plants. Both Whitewater and Veolia operate multiple plants in multiple locations, so they get the benefit of buying
Volume discounts.
a volume discount.
Okay. Mike, anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marquetti. Would anyone else like to address this public hearing? Would anyone else like to address this public hearing? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Would anyone else like to address this public hearing? With that, I am going to...
Mr. Town Manager.
Oops, I'm sorry, Councilor Nash.
Thank you. May I just ask you one question? Because obviously last year we had a much more significant and substantial sewer rate increase. Can we expect much of the same for the next fiscal year 20?
So the question that relates to, I think, depends upon the projects that are in the pipeline. And this year, we obviously didn't have the kind of debt service this year that we did in previous years. Heather, you're in charge of the particular projects. I think we're expecting more projects in next year. So we could see a significantly larger increase. As you know, Councilor Nash, our water system is in pretty good shape. It's the sewer system that's old, outdated. Our infrastructure is not what it should be. A significant amount of projects are ongoing within our sewer system. It's what's actually causing the increase. And Heather, just correct me, I guess, if I'm wrong. I expect that there's going to be more projects in next year, and there could be, in effect, a larger increase as a result of those projects. Is that correct? Did you hear my question?
I know where you're going.
Okay.
We do have multiple projects that are in the pipeline coming up for sewer. It's because of the timing of the borrowing. We won't be borrowing this fiscal year for those projects. It will actually be the next fiscal year by the time the timing comes around. But there is significant projects in the pipeline that are going to cost increases.
Councilor Mina?
Thank you to Ms. Blakely. This was brought up a few years ago, actually, to the town council, and you had given us a spreadsheet. Can you just recirculate that spreadsheet again for us for the projects?
The presentations of where we're going forward, I can I'll send it back out to you guys.
Yeah, we were forewarned a few years ago, unfortunately, about huge costs that's going to affect everyone.
Are you all set?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Steves?
Thank you. Heather, I was just curious, do you have a rough idea of how many years we'd be likely to see these kinds of increases before it stabilizes?
Well, the good news is because we have long-term debt already on the books, some of it comes off, and so it will be coming and going, but I haven't looked at the projections for the next 5 years to tell you that, yes, we're going to see relief in the next 5 years. It really depends on how quickly we move on some of these projects, where they come in as their costs. I mean, we've talked about for many years that we wanted to get in shape so that we could do potentially some odor control. Part of our next phase after we finish this phase is to redo that odor control study and see where we promised the state that we would do that. Those were some of the biggest numbers that we had, because those were $5 to $12 million, and $5 to $12 million worth of borrowing is quite considerable if we want to take that on. But there's still more decisions that need to be made regarding what kind of impacts the upgrades that we've done have made, and where we would have to target our odor control and refine those numbers, because obviously $5 to $12 million is a big range. We would want to have a better sense. But if it's on the 5 range, it's a lot more practical.
Right. And also, are you expecting any, do you have a rough estimate of what the pattern is likely to look like for water rates?
Water, we're in much better shape, but we do still have South Street coming up in the future, and that one will hit, and that will be, that's going to be a $3 million to $5 million project. And then we're going to have to look at where the other lines in the town are that have transite. That's just one section under the road. The rest of the lines going up to the plants that are cross-country are also. So we have to look long-term of what we want to do there.
Thank you.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes, through you, Mr. Town Manager, to Heather. I know that for many years, and I agree with Councilor Manna, I think it was our first year when we got bombarded with a lot of the changes, especially in the sewer plant. But unfortunately, a lot of our citizens, don't realize the presentations that we receive, and they just get hit with the tax bill. So I'm going to respectfully request maybe to have a presentation done where we can show the citizens, where your increase has gone, from this is where we were, now this is, we've seen the dilemma, this is the picture, now this is where your tax money has come. And not only that, with compliance, because I know a lot of the issues that we were close to failing and not being in compliance. So I think it's important just to show the citizens that, we're not just taxing you, we're not just, raising the bar here just to do it, but we are actually going to prove and show you some of the results and the quality.
I actually gave the DPW subcommittee a brief update of the progress that we had made a couple months ago, where we stood. I'd be happy to repeat that. I would say actually by the end of the summer, we should be able to even show the finalized projects for 2 of the big projects that we have increased in here and where we're going for the next steps. So, I should say everybody so they understand, we've had a big phosphorus removal chemical addition project that's going in. That has been basically completed. We're already on to our new chemical. We have a big bio tower replacement that's happening where we're replacing the media in our bio towers to upgrade those and get better efficiencies to stop the leaks. As I know some of you are very aware of, the outside skin of it was leaking like a sieve, which is never a good thing at a wastewater treatment plant. And we are replacing our sludge dewatering equipment, which should be completed by the end of the summer, which we were dangerously close to having that completely fail. Those were the big projects that were on the books that were the first phase of what we were really trying to start. So all of those projects that is where we are. So the chemicals really brought us into compliance with our chemical and phosphorus removal because we were doing that in temporary measures. The dewatering equipment was long-term overdue, and the biotower is another long-term overdue replacement. The next things going forward is to upgrade our electrical system because we have some issues down there with our 25-year-old electrical system where it's not reliable, and reliability is the first thing we need at a wastewater treatment plant because it has to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You cannot turn it off. So we need reliability there.
And it's not, you've done great work, and the team down there has done great work, but unfortunately the subcommittees are not recorded, and a lot of the time the minutes are not reflective to all the information.
Present that
So whether
progress.
it's the public television show that our town manager has, or even during a town council meeting where we can update the public and say, listen, this is where your money has been invested in. And I think it's going to make it easier. It's never easy when you have to come out with more money, but just to let them know that this is what's happening here, because there's going to be significant increases, and we want to continue to show the public that we're just not throwing money at a problem. It's actually getting fixed.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, former Chairman Carrasco, it does sound like a good idea. We could spend, 45 minutes or so on celebrating Southbridge to go through all of that information, or if the councilor, our chairwoman, Councilor Clements, wants to do it at council, I'm okay with that as well. With that, Councilor Clements has some questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, because there have been some comments as of late about not doing projects for a long time, but I want to remind people that back in 2009, a long time ago, when I was first being schooled in many of the things that we learn up here when you first get onto council, that was when research showed for 10 years or more, rates had not been going up. Maybe 1%, even though our annual rate was going up 2 to 2.5% every year regardless, our contract rates, we were not, this town and whatever was here, was not raising rates. And that was, people were very concerned about their water and sewer rates, and so therefore rates weren't going up. We had money in the enterprise fund, we were doing things, but we certainly were not raising rates. So long about 2009, I think was one of the first more, 3 or 4% or so, and everybody was up in arms. And then since then, as I mentioned earlier, the sewer rates got adjusted to balance out with water rates, which a lot of communities do. And it has been difficult for people to understand why. but the first tours taken many years ago showed the leaking, the sludge dewatering issue. I mean, all those things have been ongoing for the 9 years I've been here, but we've been trying to build and tackle those. So with much success, you know, and even though we as councilors have to take that hit from the public in terms of water and sewer rate hikes, we certainly, we have to do it. I mean, there's just no way around it. And again, it's rate hikes for those who actually use the water and sewer, so that it's very important that people realize that if you know, it's like cable TV or anything else. If you have a service, you pay the service for it. So I would suggest it be done at some point. Like I say, could be towards the end of the summer with whatever council's up here, but I think at a public meeting would be more, even more, because then it could replay, just like a show would. So, but yeah, that's, I mean, it was what it was back then. We've had this discussion at public hearings, and now we're taking care of business. So that's what we have to do for the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Clearly, we have an old infrastructure as it relates to sewer. We're going to have to make investment in that system to be able to maintain that service for our customers. Any other citizens? With that, I'm going to announce that I am going to be moving forward. Oops, I'm sorry. Councilor DePietro.
Mr. Town Manager, just wondering, and I don't think the question's been asked, what happens if this didn't pass?
I'm not sure. I mean, the question if it didn't pass, we obviously have bills like we do any other department, and we would have to go back and see what things we could cut to be able to make this work. Most of these projects are projects that the resulting increases are projects that the council's already voted upon for those projects. So it's not like this is some new kind of surprise funding. In effect, I guess we could go back and make cuts, but the rates here are relatively low, and the purpose of this is to maintain the current system and try to, we're not really trying to make big improvements, we're just trying to maintain it at a reasonable level.
That's the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay.
And again, I don't think it had been asked, and
No, it's a fair question, and I appreciate the question, and obviously I think it's something the public out there wants to understand. So,
absolutely.
you know, it's sad that we have to make investments, you know, and keep our systems up. It's just like keeping your house up. Every once in a while you have to paint it, you have to maintain it.
Of course.
It's the same thing with our systems, and sometimes the repairs are larger in nature than smaller in nature, and that's where we are here as a system in terms of sewer. So we're doing what we have to do to maintain the quality of service that we provide to the citizens. With that, I want to thank our assessor and our DPW director and our vendor, Steve from Whitewater, for your comments. I am going to close the public hearing and confirm that the rates will be set at 1% for water and 2% for sewer. With that, I want to thank you, and we're going to close the public hearing at 7:42 p.m. I turn the meeting back over to our chairwoman, Councilor Clements.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the council if it would be okay to take presentations out of order this evening. We have a number of people in the audience that rather than make them sit through, they may choose to stay and sit through our reports and such, but if I may have a motion to move swearing in and presentations up above to item number 6.
So moved.
Second.
Any concerns, comments?
I just have one concern, because I know we voted to go into the public hearing. Do we need to vote to get out of the public hearing?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I apologize. Thank you for pointing that out. Could we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Very good. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. Now we have a motion on the table for moving item number 10 into position 6 and a second. So all those in favor? All right, so that is what we're going to do. I don't think there'll be any objections from the audience. Item number 10, we have a couple of presentations, as I mentioned. The first will be a proclamation to Dexter Russell. And we have with us Alan Peppel, the CEO of the company, joining us. Come on up. So we are here this evening with Alan and from Dexter Russell here in Southbridge. Many of you are very familiar with this company. Some of you might not be. They are celebrating their 200th anniversary and here in Southbridge. Wonderful manufacturing company on River Street. And we've brought Alan in with the help of Margaret Morrissey, who has helped to put together a wonderful proclamation from the community. It's not often or ever, I think, that we have seen a 200th anniversary manufacturing company celebrate here in Southbridge. So
you know, it's a very proud moment for our community, and we appreciate you taking the time to come out this evening so we could give this to you. I know you have a lot going on with the company in this coming month, and with that said, I will read the proclamation, and then we would like to hear maybe a little bit about the company, because for those who are not aware. So, presented to Dexter Russell Incorporated, whereas the town of Southbridge is proud to celebrate Dexter Russell Inc. on the occasion of its 200th anniversary, and whereas the Harrington Cutlery Company was founded by Henry Harrington, a New England craftsman and inventor who established the first cutlery company in the United States on June 18, 1818, in Southbridge, Massachusetts, using Dexter as the trade name. And whereas John Russell was the founder of the Green River Works Company in Greenfield, Massachusetts on March 1, 1834, and these industry pioneers later merged their respective businesses to form the Russell Harrington Company May 1, 1933, later known as Dexter Russell. And whereas Dexter Russell has built a solid reputation for 200 years by meeting the demand of a complex industrial environment in an industry where precision and quality are paramount. And whereas Dexter Russell has survived challenges brought on by economic turbulence and a continually changing business environment while providing service to its customers. And whereas Dexter Russell is the first cutlery company in the United States and has set the standard in the industry and enjoys a stellar reputation of innovation, quality, outstanding customer service, and continual customer focus. And whereas Dexter Russell could not have accomplished any of this without its world-class employees and their shared dedication to excellence. And whereas Dexter Russell will continue to serve as a leading corporate citizen in our community as an exemplary employer and corporate leader for generations to come. In witness thereof, this 4th day of June 2018, and it is signed by myself, on behalf of the council and the entire town, community, region-wide, everybody that you employ. Congratulations on 200 years.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And we would love to hear... So if you could fill us in a little bit as to a little more about the company, the products you do, and what happens right here in our community for those who aren't aware. And the question I have this evening is, why are you still here in Southbridge?
Okay, I'll be happy to answer that. Thank you, Chairperson Clements. On behalf of all the employees of Dexter Russell, which are over 200, I'm very pleased to accept this award and to recognize our contribution in the Southbridge area. We've been here on River Street for over 80 years and in the community for 200 years, celebrating our bicentennial, as was stated. Our products we make about 2,400 different items. Our products are used primarily in the professional food service, processing plants, poultry plants, in commercial fishing, and in, I hope, in a lot of your homes, considering we have the outlet store down on River Street as well. It's interesting to note that our heritage, I think, is very rich in this town, from Charles Harrington, who was the grandson of Henry Harrington, the original founder in 1818. Charles is the one that dedicated the land and $150,000 to fund, and it's actually a challenge grant to the town. In about 1931 is when the hospital started. But the Harrington Hospital actually goes back to our company and is part of kind of this, I think, this rich heritage we have of recognizing our role in the community and trying to be a good employer and having a place that our employees are respected, their jobs are honored, and we try to value what each and every one of them can do. I think as we continue to grow, we're just putting in a brand new robotic-controlled grinding machine this week, which we're excited about. It will be the fourth, or actually fifth, robotic-controlled grinding machine we're putting in, so we can maintain both the tolerances and the speed of production that we need to compete in the world and to try to satisfy our customers with great products that are delivered on time. The reason to answer the question, why are we still here? We think the employer base, we find the town to be a good place for us as an employer. We've had conversations about improving roads and other things, but I'm sure we'll get there eventually. But we find working with the town to be something where we have open ears and a willingness to try to strive to do things better. It's not only, of course, we have employees that work in the whole tri-community and commute from a whole wide area, so we want to take advantage of good roads and make sure all those things work for us as well. So on behalf of all the employees of Dexter Russell, it's my pleasure to accept this award. Thank you, and we're happy to be here for 200 years. And hopefully we can be here another 200 years, but I won't be here then. So thank you very much. And in recognition of that, I have something for the town. This is a book we put together for the bicentennial. We'll be handing out to all of our employees tomorrow. And so it's my pleasure to give you an advanced copy, so to speak, so you can see it, and talks about the history and what we're doing today. So.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pepple. Fantastic. Love it. That'll be a wonderful addition.
No fair peeking at it while the rest of the meeting's going on.
Okay. You know, it would be remiss if I didn't also thank you for your corporate donations to this community. Dexter Russell and the foundation that you are part of has been a corporate leader in donating and making sure that much of the needs are met by the people and the town. So thank you for that as well, to you and your family. We wish you many more years here in Southbridge.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we have another presentation this evening, but I do not have to do any of this work. This will be done by Chief DeFranzo, so we'll bring him up. It is, we have 4 Citizen Bystander Awards that he will present this evening. They will be to Monique Chapdelaine, James Howard, Cindy Howard, and Erica Travinsky. Chief DeFranzo, if you would like to explain.
Thank you, Chairman. As you know, we had a significant fire at 71 West Street on May 10th. This is a large building, 3 stories high, with a total of 6 apartments. It's what some of us would call a 3-decker type building due to its size and construction. Now, what I'm going to read is the following account from Mr. Jim Howard. And again, we had to kind of confirm the story. We got some of this over social media, and we really couldn't confirm anything because they were so quiet about it and didn't really tell anybody anything. So, as you know, with social media, we have to really vet those things out and confirm that what we were hearing on social media was in true factual. So here's what he had to say. A little before noontime on Thursday, May 10th, 4 of us, agency administrative staff from the Center of Hope, were visiting our West Street program. Upon exiting 68 West Street, we noticed some smoke coming out of a second-floor apartment across the street at 71 West Street. It appeared to be more than what would occur from something burning on the stove. We speculated that somebody may be operating a grill on the porch. We then heard a faint call for help. Erica Travinsky, our Assistant Chief Operating Officer, and Monique Chapdelaine, the Director of our West Street program, immediately ran up the stairs to provide assistance. They were told by the babysitter, who was holding one child in her arms, that 2 children were still inside the apartment. They entered the smoke-filled kitchen with no visibility and at significant risk themselves. As they walked fully into the kitchen, they bumped into the 2 children who were standing there not making a sound. They rushed the children out of the house and brought them, as well as others, to their program across the street. Mr. Howard managed to get a fire extinguisher, but by then the room was gushing black smoke and the fire was not visible. In the meantime, Cindy Howard had called 911. Additionally, several other staff members from the Center of Hope joined in providing assistance, drinks, rides to the hospital and schools, and other help to many families that were affected by this fire. I think if it wasn't for our heroic ladies, a terrible tragedy could have occurred. The timing of our presence, the heroism of our staff, and the grace of God affected a safe outcome for these children. I think I agree with Mr. Howard's last sentence. If these people hadn't gone over and provided the level of assistance that they did, I'm not sure what the outcome would have been that day. So with that, I think we should recognize those people for their efforts that day. They all say the same thing, so I'll read the first one. This life-saving award presented to Monique Chapdelaine for your extraordinary actions that saved the lives of occupants at 71 West Street on May 10th, 2018. Monique. Cindy Howard. James Howard. And Erica Travinsky. I don't know if they have any parting words, but again, I certainly want to thank Erica, Monique, Cindy, and Jim, and all of the Center of Hope staff that helped out that day. It certainly was a horrific day for those people in that apartment building, but I think they made their day a little bit brighter and hopefully a little happier that day by their assistance.
Erica and Monique. They were the ones that, when they heard the faint help, bolted up those stairs faster than I could have ever bolted up the stairs, and put themselves at some risk to go into the smoke-filled room with no visibility to find the children, which fortunately they did. So it turned out in the end to be a wonderful event for not the fire, but the saving of the children. So thank you, Erica and Monique. And thank you for recognizing us with this award. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much. There are many heroes here in Southbridge. It's a fine example tonight. Okay, we're going to move on then. We'll go back to the order. Agenda item number 6 will be consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of May 21st, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion on the minutes. I believe there's some changes.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I made a bunch of changes on the Google Docs version that was sent around to us, but obviously it's not the version that we have in our packets at the moment. So I'm not sure how we want to handle those. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read them or not.
We can postpone accepting these. We can, I don't know, you said you had quite a few changes?
I had quite a few of them, yeah.
So it's up to the council. If you want to wait, we can send them back around. We have another meeting on the 11th, so it's just next week.
And I know I asked Mary before the meeting, she said she hasn't seen the changes, so.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a wise decision, or recommendation. I'd agree with them.
Okay, so then we will just postpone taking anything on this.
Okay.
We had a first and a second, though, so...
You want me to withdraw?
Sure.
Okay, I'll withdraw them. I don't know if we did.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, great. If you didn't get the electronic version and you need it, please let us know so that we can make sure you get a copy, and then we can get them back to... Excuse me. And that's okay. Go ahead, Councilor Clare.
Did you make the changes in the Google Doc?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So
I
if we go into the invitation edit or whatever, we can see.
It should be there.
It should be there.
I
okay.
hope it's there.
Thank you.
A bunch of yellow highlights.
I can check it.
That's the version that is.
Yeah. I can check in with Yvonne also and find out what she's got and resend with whatever Councilor Steves had sent back, just in case. And that way, that'll be the most updated. And when you make changes, just throw in your own highlight in your initial or something. That's
yeah.
generally.
Yeah, okay. I didn't realize that anybody had made changes on it, so I didn't worry. So thank you.
Okay. It's working mostly. Got a few things, a few bugs occasionally. All right. There's also the 23rd minutes that got sent to you. So if there was anything on that, they're not on this agenda, so that will be taken up also on the 11th. Okay, then we will move on to what was 7, subcommittee summaries, where the relevant minutes are generally read at each agenda item, and we will start with 7A, General Government. Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the minutes in front of me for the April 30th meeting, which is primarily because it was the capital budget meeting. So I figure, do you want me to read through them now, or do you want to wait till we go through get down to the capital budget items, because we talked extensively on this issue. It was an extremely long meeting. I think we ran from like 6:30 to 11 or something like that, 11:30. So there's a lot of detail in here. I don't know how much you want me to do.
I think perhaps when we...
Everybody has copies in the
Everyone
packet
has
too,
copies. Had an opportunity to read it over the weekend. I would say that as we do the capital budget, if people have more questions, they can ask directly, or you can report, you can summarize each item. Whatever, unless somebody requires you to read them now. That's up to the council, if they would like them fully read now.
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay, I'm not seeing anybody jump on that, so,
No, good.
so then we're going to move on.
Good, it's long-winded.
Anything else?
Oh, and we do have let's see, I have a meeting scheduled for the 13th at 6. Although the agenda hasn't yet been posted.
Right. Okay. All right then. So save your minutes, and we'll move on to 7B, which is Department of Public Works, and that's Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At present, we have a subcommittee meeting scheduled for the Department of Public Works tomorrow evening, June the 5th at 6 p.m. in the Veterans Room. It consists of some very substantial requests for monies and transfers to be allocated. I urge all councilors who are available to attend this meeting tomorrow prior to the special meeting we have. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you. 7C, Education and Human Services, Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Meeting of the Education and Human Services Subcommittee joint with Town Council was held on Tuesday, May 29th at 6 p.m. in the Veterans Room. Relatively short meeting of about 8 minutes where we did take care of some housekeeping items with previous meetings minutes. What's more, there is one item that's on tonight's agenda in regards to appointments through the Health Department in regards to tobacco agents. I don't remember the number, but I think it's number 12. What's more, there was an agenda item that we did discuss, and I won't read the paragraph in its entirety, but it did relate to asking council to make a request of the Board of Health to take up the topic of residential dumpsters and regulations. So if there's any question, I'm sure that the meeting minutes are within everyone's packet. They are in draft form, and we'll take them up at our next meeting. And as of right now, we do not have any future meetings scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor DePietro, you have a question?
Madam Chair, if I may, through you, Councilor Nash, maybe a very naive question, but what does this position entail, a tobacco? Is this the folks that go in and make sure the underage aren't, and that's primarily their...
Sure. May I?
Certainly.
Thank you.
That's one of our first items.
That's a very fair question, and quite frankly, I don't know I don't know if this is working. I don't know if it's fair for me to explain in its entirety because I don't know Councilor DePietro. The health director did elaborate to let us know that these agents are not direct appointments of the town of Southbridge, but rather agents of a particular coalition to which the town belongs. If he wants to elaborate, or perhaps Councilor Clements could explain more if she's more familiar.
I think since that's one of our first agenda items, we can explain it there. They're an advisory, there are 2 advisory positions to the Board of Health in terms of tobacco regulations. So I'm sure that our director can handle those questions at number 12. Would that be okay with you?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Because I think the gist of your
Nash.
paragraph is pretty much that, so he can elaborate on the rest of it.
Thank you. Good question. I appreciate you asking.
Okay. All right. Very good then. Anything else, Councilor? Councilor Nash, are you all set?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Yeah. Agenda item 7D, Planning and Development, Councilor Clare.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I did send out some minutes earlier today. The last meeting that we haven't gone over was Thursday, May 24th at 6:30 in the Veterans Room. It was an update of the master plan. The town manager went through all of his progress and his department heads' his progress on the master plan. Do you want me to summarize it?
Ooh, it's listed, I think, somewhere. It's up to you if you want to highlight anything in particular. It was an hour and a half of...
Yeah, it was a lot. So this update will be on the town website, correct, Mr. Town Manager?
Yeah, we can put the update on the website, yes.
Okay, I think that would be the best way, because I'm not going to do it justice just by going through everything. The one thing that I will say is that Mr. Sanangelo is very appreciative to all of his department heads and the progress that they've made in their own respective fields towards the end goal of the completion of this. And I don't have any more meetings scheduled, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. 7E, Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I do have a meeting scheduled on June 14th, and I am currently working on the minutes from the previous meeting. The June 14th meeting is at 6 p.m. That's all.
All right, moving right along then. Chairman's announcements, just have a few. First and foremost, to me, one of the most important things to talk about is graduation. Southbridge High graduated last Friday, and it was attended by myself and a number of other counselors, so I'm sure we'll make comment. Councilor Nash, Councilor Carrasco, and Councilor Morales, excuse me, almost. And what a great event. I have to say that the school, I mean, from the invitations that we received in the mail and the programs that were handed out, and just standing in line with the parents waiting to get in and seeing such, pride and joy and excitement. There were 128 graduates, and all just beaming. And we unfortunately couldn't do it outside, so they had it inside at the middle high school gym. And out of the 128 students, 80 of them have been accepted to 2- and 4-year accredited colleges. 4 are entering the military to serve, and 19 are already set up to enter the workforce. So those are some pretty good statistics. Out of that, over 50 scholarships with over $125,000 going to our students right here to help them further their education. It was an honor to be there and to just kind of be. It's very different when you're not a parent, when you're actually just watching. I've done it a number of times, but I was very impressed with this one, from the music and the singing that went on. And even more so, the keynote speaker, who was Alexander Vargas Mendez, a nuclear engineer supervisor, graduate of Southbridge High School, who came back to give the keynote speech. And it was innovative, as she put it. Innovate is the word that she used throughout her entire speech in terms of the class and the students, and it couldn't be more appropriate. So I want to thank Mr. Vilar and the interim principal, Mr. Danby, and the others who all worked hard to really make us proud, and the students who made us the proudest, because 128 graduates. I sat before it at some a few years back. I think it was about 65, maybe 70 if we were there, if we were at that point. To see 128 was really wonderful. And again, the pride in that room, the families, the excitement, it was really wonderful. So again, thanks to everybody and to our students, and it was wonderful to join my fellow counselors to be able to be there that evening. So, pardon? Yes, certainly.
I wasn't able to attend graduation. However, I was at senior class night with Councilor Nash, and there was the same kind of energy there too. It was pretty amazing seeing so many of the kids that were, quite frankly, they were basically baking orbits around the auditorium because they kept getting so many scholarships. Some of them, it was pretty amazing, and we have a very impressive student body in our town, and they do not get anywhere near the credit that they deserve.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, there are great colleges from Anna Maria to Worcester State, of course, 2 years, like Quincy and Bristol, but Nichols, Boston College, Bridgewater State, UMass Boston. I mean, they're a pharmacy, College of Pharmacy. I mean, you name it, and pretty much everybody is on this list. Endicott, Emmanuel, so many colleges that our students have been accepted to. And that is a testament to those who are teaching them, their parents who are making sure that they're staying the course really seriously, and more for those students who maybe don't even have the support systems that are making it through. They're getting through, and they're graduating, and they're going on, and being productive citizens. So again, great applause to all of them and everyone who's made it happen. So it's great to share. On another note, we had a retiree happen over the weekend, and I just want to point that out. 19 years of service for firefighter Warreka. The fire department celebrated a little bit for him over the weekend, and again, 19 years of service to this community. So I just want to wish him and his family well in whatever endeavors he is partaking in now. But that's longevity here, and it says something for our community and for those who stay, whether it's a 200-year-old company or a 19-year employee or a 30-year employee, or I believe we'll be celebrating a 40-year employee soon. So it's a testament. There are many reasons people stay in Southbridge or come back to Southbridge. I did want to also congratulate on that. One last thing on the graduation note. Our salutatorian was Julia Farron, who is daughter to Kim Farron, right in the office, our Human Services Director. And the valedictorian was Benjamin Chang. So congratulations to them for their high honors. Okay, so let's see, Cops and Kids. We mentioned that before. I'm going to mention it again. Their golf tournament, the 3rd annual Cops and Kids golf tournament, is happening, as we've said, on Friday, June 22nd. There are still registrations open. I heard there's maybe 7 or so foursomes left. It's $125 per person, $500 a foursome. You can still get involved with this. You can get a form right online. You can pick one up at the police station. You can go to their Facebook page, the Cops and Kids page, or the police Facebook page, and find out how to get the information so that you can participate. If you're not a golfer, there's many of ways that you can help out, of course. This wonderful program, all the proceeds go to helping to sponsor the summer youth camp and other programs throughout the year. That summer camp, about 150 kids participate for 6 weeks for free. At 7 o'clock in the morning, they show up. They get fed 2 meals a day, and they learn a lot. And it's a great way to build relationships for the youth in our law enforcement agencies here in Southbridge. So if you have the ability to sponsor a hole, perhaps, or just make some type of donation, perhaps a gift donation, anything, please get in touch with Deputy Chief Dingy or anyone else involved with the police station, or ask any of us. We'll send you in the right spot so that you can participate. Again, that's happening on Friday, June 22nd, and it's at the Heritage Country Club. I hadn't mentioned that. So I hope that you all take time to participate. I know some of our counselors up here have participated in the past. I personally, Councilor Manna, we do the work. We just do some of the grunt work on the backside, but love to see those golfers. It's a great event always. So we hope you'll join them.
Councilor Clements, can I add to that?
Yes, certainly.
I appreciate everything that you've said, and I would supplement by saying that I've done a lot of golf tournaments in my life, and by far, this is one of the best tournaments, best run, best attended, and with some of the most generous sponsors for the raffle prizes. It's just amazing to see what is brought forth to support this program, and I look forward to attending this year, but if you have the ability, please do step up and sponsor or join us on the 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And finally, I did reach out. I've left a couple of messages for Mr. and Mrs. Ortiz for the who are doing handball clinics. As we know, they are big supporters and organizers of all our handball over at Henry Street, and I'm still hoping that they will be willing to come in and do a presentation at some point at a council meeting. On that note, I don't have the dates. I believe one was coming up this weekend, perhaps. I believe, Councilor Carrasco, you know some of the dates on that, unless, I don't know if you want to say something now, or...
Yeah, there are 3 consecutive Saturdays. They start this Saturday, and they will go 3 consecutive Saturdays, and they're in the afternoon.
Great. I was able to be there last year and watch one of their events. Great turnout, and the people were having a lot of fun. I personally don't want to throw myself on the ground at all, but they didn't seem to have a problem. So, okay, I think that is it at this moment for I'm sure I've forgotten something, but we'll turn this over to the town manager for his announcements.
Thank you. Council members, I had the opportunity at the end of last week to attend a MMA Managers Conference, and as you know, many of you attend the regular MMA annual meeting. It's a great opportunity for professional development to improve our skills so that we can provide better quality services to the people of Southbridge. This was an important meeting, and frankly, I've attended them for the last 5 years, but this one I thought was quite important. The topic was discrimination and the structural impact of discrimination on people. Frankly, a lot of the structural discrimination has actually occurred by decisions made by our federal government many, many years ago. And the Massachusetts Municipal Association, who holds this conference, is going to be doing sort of a statewide tour to come to talk to people across the state about this important issue. And I'm pretty sure that Southbridge is going to be one of those communities that they come to, and the reason is they want to be able to come and talk about how people feel about the issue and how it impacts them in their lives. And I think it's something we all have to recognize, that discrimination still exists, and that we need to do everything in our power to make it not exist into the future, and to help those citizens who faced decisions made by things like banks and government that actually impacted their lives in a very, very negative way. So I'm looking forward to that. I haven't set up a date with them, but I did discuss it. I would really love to have Southbridge be one of the towns, because I know we have a wide variety of different nationalities, and people would like to, I think, have impact in this conversation, and it's a statewide conversation. So I will let councilors know when that occurs. I'd love to have everybody be involved, the councilors and citizens be involved in that. And I think it's important that we do everything in our power to protect the rights of every individual citizen. So I think that is going to be a good cause. On another note, we brought in specialized training for all town hall employees. As you know, we passed a sexual harassment policy, and also a harassment policy against different protected groups under state law. We had that policy come in, and all of the town employees sat through training on this issue. And it was great to see the questions that employees asked about this issue, and about the policy, and how it impacts them, and how they could make sure that they treated all employees fairly. I thought that was great, and it was 2 different large meetings of employees, and like everyone attended. And they signed off that they actually read the policy and understood it, and they all had opportunities to ask any question they want of some professionals who did the training, and frankly, they were awesome. The people that did the training were very knowledgeable, and were able to ask her all questions very, very easily. So I think that was very, very positive. As you know, we just started opening up communications and meetings with the DPW department as it relates to union contract. I'm not going to get into those. That's obviously something confidential we have to work through in the negotiations, but it has started, and that has been occurring. I want to thank the town council for once again approving the substance abuse plan. We will be meeting shortly to begin the implementation of that plan. As I think I've told many of you, the implementation is going to center around the new school year, so that we have a lot of impact around the school year as we come in, and that'll be everything to planning when the billboard is going to go up, to when information is going to go out to parents, to when we buy the posters for the school system, to when we're going to have speakers, both in the middle and in the high school. So it's a very well-developed plan, and I think everybody's excited about the actual implementation, and looking forward to doing everything in our power to educate the people about the dangers of substance abuse, and particularly opioids. We are, as you know, in Southbridge, are like people around the country, we're watching and citizens die as a result of this dangerous substance. And I want to once again thank our fire department and our police department. They do an amazing job in saving lives, and they've done it a lot. And they deserve a great appreciation. And we're going to continue to move forward to do everything, thanks to your support, to protect people against this. And that was tonight all I have, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you.
Councilor Crosby.
Yeah, just to correct in regards to the handball clinic, they just had one on this past Saturday, the 26th, that went by, and the upcoming dates are July 3rd, July 10th, and July 17th, from 3:30 to 4:30. The only thing they're asking for participants, it's a free handball clinic, and the only thing they're asking is for 2 things: bring a water bottle and bring a positive attitude. That's all they require.
Thank you for that update. All right, we're going to move on to Citizens Forum. If there's anyone who would like to say anything here at the council meeting that is not on the agenda, you can approach the podium, give your name and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes. If there's anything you would like to speak to that's not on the agenda.
Denise, I'm Kathy Labriori, 51 Mark Avenue, and I would just like to thank you for the feel-good stuff that you said about graduation, and such a positive feeling that it gives to me. I'm diehard Southbridge schools, things are going to get better, And I think it was just so nice to hear that. And I wish that, I don't know if it's the government, whoever, who forces towns to pay for kids for school choice. And if we didn't have that, I think we'd be in a lot better shape. And just for, like, the old Sturbridge Village school is apparently $14,000 a year for each child. That's like a third of what some colleges charge for a college education. I don't understand. But anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you. I agree completely, and I've often said from the first time I got here and found out that school choice was $750,000 a year 9 years ago, and now it's $1.5 million plus the charter school. I've blamed the states for allowing school choice since then. They've hurt us immensely, so we agree on this. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to say talk about something that is not on the agenda? Please approach. I'm not seeing anyone, so we will move on. Agenda item number 12, vote to confirm the appointments of tobacco agents Megan Denublia and Eric Jacks as required by Mass General Law 111, Section 30 for a 3-year term effective immediately and ending June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And this is where, yes, Councillor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. And I appreciate the chance to kind of introduce Mr. Pelletier, if you'll allow me. Within our packets, item number 12, there is the memo from Mr. Pelletier that explains kind of the high-level overview of what these positions entail. All that's on that memo in response to the question Councilor DePietro asked, and subsequently, we didn't get a lot of detail during the EHS meeting, just so that you're aware of that, Councilor. These agents are brought on board or appointed so that they can assist in developing policy and enforcing it, but I'm not sure how much they actually work to develop. So I'm hoping that we can ask Mr. Pelletier to provide that explanation as part of this.
Absolutely.
That'd be nice to know. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. First off, I want to make it very clear, these positions aren't new positions. These positions have been helping the town for all the 4 years I've been here, and I would assume that Jim Moran voted a regional cooperation between the town of Southbridge and the town of Worcester. These agents are actually employees of the town of Worcester, but they act as agents for the Board of Health in Southbridge and all the other coalition towns. And the reason I'm bringing the appointment forward now is because we had a legal issue with a ticket that was issued by these people, and a lawyer came in and said, have these people been appointed by the Board of Health? So a bunch of research, and any agent of the Board of Health acting on behalf of the Board of Health has to be appointed by the Board, or it says by the Board of Health, but we have an appointed Board of Health, so therefore appointed by the authority that appoints them. So these are not new positions. They are not Southbridge funded positions. By our cooperation with Worcester, we become part of a huge grant, and they are paid through the grant. These people come on board to help us research laws if the Board of Health wishes to. We do have a local public health law on youth access, but we've also thought about other laws, the no tobacco sales in pharmacies, no sales to anybody under 21, just any possible law that could come up. These people help us do research on those laws and give us advice on how to write them up if we were going to adopt them. Southbridge has not adopted those laws yet. And actually, they're not even actively being considered. But these people help us research laws. Through our agreement with Worcester, we also get access to free legal through the coalition. It's a MEHA attorney who assists Worcester and therefore assists us. And additional to that, these agents come into town and they do education at all the stores that sell tobacco regarding signage, regarding placement of product, and they also periodically arrange or organize the youth access attempts, commonly called stings, but they would send the youths in, and these are the people who coordinate the youth access buys for the town of Southbridge.
Okay, Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, and I think it's more of a comment than a question to Mr. Pelletier, but I do recall that during the subcommittee meeting, it may have been a little confusing to some of us, at least to me, and you did a good job to kind of provide the overview, Mr. Pelletier. These sorts of agents aren't the sorts of appointments that we encounter very often. I think we equated it something along the something along the line of a constable or something like that. So it was definitely a little confusing, but I think that the intention was to make sure that these appointments were formalized so that we were covered and so that there was no future or further complication presented to the Board of Health or to the town of Southbridge. So one reason I mention all of this was we didn't get a typical data sheet on any particular individual that we were appointing or asked to recommend appointment of. So I just wanted that to be very clear. It seemed a little bit unusual to us at that, or at least to me at that committee meeting, and even here, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. But I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
All set?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous, 8. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on. Agenda 13, vote to confirm the appointment of Kevin Buxton to the Trails Committee for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you. As all of you know, Kevin is a regular volunteer here in town and shows up at most of our town council meetings as well. He's somebody that's on and very involved, particularly in Department of Health issues, and has been very involved in the Sustainability Landfill Oversight Committee, but has a very big interest and has attended numerous trails meetings, has a very big interest in improving the trails in Southbridge. It's important to him. I can't think of, he sent me a letter basically asking to be on this particular committee. But in the time I've been here, Kevin is somebody who routinely comes to me, asks me questions, is always interested in answers about a whole host of different topics, and is very involved and seems to care a great deal about the town of Southbridge. So I actually look forward to putting him on this committee. I think it's going to be good for the town, and I think he'll be somebody who does everything in his best interest, in the town's best interest, to make our trails better. Thank you.
All those in favor? It's unanimous, 8. Motion carries.
Agenda item 14, vote to appropriate $1,059,900 from free cash for the FY 2019 capital budget as follows. Okay, so we'll read through them all, and then I guess if there's specific ones, if you could ask me and I'll make a notation. Airport vegetation removal equipment, $20,000. Purchase of 2 police vehicles, $80,000. Police facilities management improvements, which include masonry, reseal, sealants, and expansion joints, $7,000. HVAC controls, replace due to life cycle, $40,000. Repair cell valves, $4,800. Engineering for the second floor to cool the remote IT closet. HVAC cooling, install in IT closet, $12,000. Replace cell ductwork in plumbing chase, $20,000. Central dispatch equipment, $200,000. Library security cameras, $17,500. Resurface Henry Street basketball courts, $50,000. 75% design of the Hook and Hamilton Street project, $130,000. DPW fuel systems upgrades, $15,000. Under Town Hall facility management plan improvements, HVAC and cooling, replace several split units, $30,000. Electric upgrades, $18,000. Keyless entry for the Town Hall, $17,000. Conversion and implementation of new financial software, $200,000. School department capital, Chromebook lease, $121,000. IT equipment lease, $28,000. Replace 1972 roof section of Coal Trade Building, $10,000. Replace the 1932 roof section over the library stairwell, CSS, for $10,000. Replace 32 carbon detectors at the Southbridge Middle High School, $7,600. Replace failed air compressor at Charlton Street School. No, that was Charlton Street School, the stairwell, sorry, SCC, I wasn't thinking. Replace failed air compressor at Charlton Street School, $8,000. And replace all female carriers and service gym cafe wall at the Charlton Charlton School, can't even think of, Charlton Street School, sorry, $10,000. Yeah, the CSS keeps throwing me. Okay, so that total is $1,059,900. So discussions, I see, okay. Well, Counselor Steves, do you want to?
Yeah, mine's actually a correction, actually, because you look at the police facilities management improvements, that actually adds up to $40,800, not $40,000. There's a misprint in there.
Okay, so where we, I've got 40,000, and where are you seeing, on your notes, or?
These are the four subsets right here, 40,000, it adds up to 40,800.
Oh, is that the?
Which means the grand total comes to $1,060,700.
Hang on, I don't think so, I think they're individual items.
It's individual items, yes.
Could you,
If I could,
let's get some
Madam Chair,
clarification, please, yes.
Correct, Madam Chair, they're individual items.
They are, because it looks like, look at the HVAC controls, these are all subset of HVAC controls, that's why I'm adding them together. They're not? They're something
It's a
separate.
subset, but it's different items under HVAC.
Yeah, I know that, but what I'm saying is that they don't add up to the same thing, so.
Well, that's up to 40,800 total.
Yeah, it ends up to 40,800 total.
No, it's
Plus
no.
the 40, 80,000.
There's something separate from.
Madam Chair, can I elaborate a little further on it?
Please clarify.
The HVAC control, a $40,000 price is to upgrade pretty much most of the HVAC system.
Yeah.
Right now, the department, for $40,000, is operating Windows 98 software,
Right.
and it cools and heats our entire building. So if that 98 software shuts down at some point, we cannot buy parts for that. So that's the first 40,000. The 4,800 is a complete different, that's for cell valves.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Just clarifying, thank you.
We've got it on, it's on the main printout.
But if you look at the agenda,
Yeah.
Right,
It does
okay.
appear to add up, though, like you're saying, it almost seems like
it looked like it should be subsets.
It would
Okay.
be nice, we'd save some money.
All set?
I think we're,
Thank you.
Councilor
Yes.
Manna then, on the same subject?
No,
Okay,
nothing else.
okay. Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I've said it before in the past, and I'm going to bring it up again. The Southbridge High School down on Cole Ave, we're replacing a 1972 roof section for $10,000. However, when we got the new school because we said the old school wasn't good enough. It was unsafe and all this other stuff. But here we are, we're still using it. Now, I don't know what sections we're using, if we're using the safe parts or the unsafe parts, but if there's one unsafe part, there's many unsafe parts to me, especially when it houses little children. And that's just, it's a huge concern for me. And if you ask me, I think that should just not even be on the list. It should be on the market. So, there you go.
Councilor Clare.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I would completely echo that same sentiment. I think that we should be making some real decisions about whether or not we're going to continue utilizing that, especially since the net operating costs, after the income that we bring in from various rentals is still around $400,000 a year. And I would like to see that long-term sort of plan, either whether we're going to demolish it, whether we're going to sell it, whether we're going to do something, but that's too much for taxpayers to be paying every month. I would like for, either beginning of the next sitting council or the end of this one to actually take a real good look at that, and I don't think that we should be putting $10,000 into a roof section that is on a building that could feasibly be demolished in the next 5 years.
Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was very surprised to see on this list Henry Street resurfacing of the basketball courts.
Okay, so you're on to the next item?
I'm sorry?
You're on, I thought you're not on Councilor Clare's item, you're on the Henry Street.
I am.
Because I just wanted to comment on Councilor Clare's, and I think the town manager did too. I thought you were referring back to councilors. I agree with you. Years ago, as soon as that building was open, every year I asked for the same data. I asked for how much it cost us this year to keep up. What are we doing in terms of fees coming in? And I realize we've been good stewards to the YMCA and the Head Start program and all that. But at the time, it was about 500,000. So now we're, with the rentals, you're down to 4. But
it's still $500,000 a year. And we brought that up numerous times to other superintendents. Why can't we rent space somewhere? Why can't we build a smaller, we'll just build a little building and get rid of the big building, because it just doesn't make sense.
We could pay for rent from there somewhere
Yeah,
else.
but you could have a lease for the next 20 years and it wouldn't eat up the kind of money that we eat up. So I agree with you 100%, and I've been singing that one for a long time, but it doesn't seem to go. We seem to keep, as you say too, increasing and adding and changing, and it just, I don't get it. But it takes a vote by council, I guess, or the school committee, somebody. Do you want to say something, or do you want to talk about that?
I just had a quick question, yeah, actually. I was curious, has the school department ever done an overall study of that building to see what it actually needs? Because I know we haven't seen one, so.
So if I could talk a little bit about the general topic and see if Seth wants to address this question. So as you know, a number of different councilors have been asking these questions, and I keep asking them of the school system itself. Right. Obviously, one of the things that everybody understands they're doing is the Southbridge Academy over there, and they brought students into the Southbridge Academy, and they're using that space. And I think the concept is that to improve the environment at the middle and high school by bringing in children that need extra attention into the Cole building for the Southbridge Academy. And you're right, there's various organizations that are currently using that facility, including it's obviously the headquarters for the administration. And I've asked a number of times, this is obviously a decision of the school committee, or in this case, I guess the receiver, to the long-term plan of what they want to do with that building. And truthfully, I haven't really got a detailed long-term plan for what they want to do. But the question arose, and frankly, this is the first year where we actually got a more detailed request for capital improvements. And regardless of what we think about Cole School specifically, I'm glad to see we actually got some capital improvements that deal with the facilities over there, because we need to take care of school facilities. So I'm very happy about that. I don't know if our new receiver has had much time to address the long-term plan for that building. I know that it was being considered by past receivers and discussed. Seth, if you can help us with what you think the long-term plan of that building is, I think councilors would appreciate that. Obviously, they know they don't want to invest money if they don't think there's a long-term plan. And I think the question that's been asked of me, and I think it was raised by Councilor Manna, is, and Councilor Clements, is if we take people out of that building and rent space for, let's say, the school administration that's there and the Southbridge Academy, what would it cost us to do that versus the cost of maintaining the existing building? So I think we kind of all would like to hear a little bit more details as to what the plans of the school system are.
If I could just maybe tweak that question. Sure. And I've asked that before. Where's the turning point then, the savings by doing the school academy, because that saves us money supposedly from not sending kids out of district and such to other facilities or other. So when does this school not be such a burden? When can the taxpayers expect, or do you have any projection to that? I guess is more of my concern. I'd keep the building if I knew that it was paying for itself somehow. Do you know what I mean? I would not be a problem if it balanced out, but it doesn't.
Not like we're putting any pressure on you, so.
There we go.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to address the issue of Cole Avenue and Southbridge Academy and all other programmatic related issues. As you're aware, both myself and the new receiver are less than a year in to our time here in Southbridge, but I can absolutely assure you that one of the priorities of our superintendent receiver, Dr. Villar, is about long-term planning. And so while we don't have enough time yet on the ground to be able to look at this, it is a priority of his. Just to clarify some of the facts that have been echoed here, last year, the cost in fiscal year 2017, the cost of Cole Avenue, the expenses, was $413,718. The revenue associated with the building, as mentioned before, related to renting out the facility for the YMCA, the Head Start program, and other related events was $129,124 for a net cost of $284,594. Now, there are currently in Cole Ave, the building, there are three functions. There is, we rent the space for Head Start at a cost of, the revenue is about $80,000 a year. We have central office in the space. as well as Southbridge Academy, a new program this year. And the plan for next year is to expand it. So Southbridge Academy is a middle high school program for alternative youth that would have been served out of district. Currently, there are about 35 students who are served there, and we are actually expanding the program to try to create it more of a therapeutic day program to be able to not only serve Southbridge Academy students who are currently being served in out-of-district placements, to bring them back into Southbridge, to be able to serve them here, but potentially long-term, we might be able to serve other students from other districts and receive tuition associated with them. Currently, for these students, the out-of-district placement is anywhere between $45,000 to $50,000 per student, and we'd be able to save a substantial amount of money serving them in-house. And so part of the plan for next year's budget for the Southbridge Public Schools is to expand our staffing, to be able to expand our offerings, become a licensed therapeutic day program, and then be able to serve students in-house, saving us money. I guess I will pause there and see if there's questions.
All right, go ahead. I didn't know if he was done his statement, but go ahead.
I would wait. I'll wait if you want to finish. I can wait.
That's okay. So I guess just sort of finally, in terms of long-term planning, we have not yet extensively looked at other space. I think first it would have to involve looking at enrollment, and as it has come up in previous budget meetings and presentations, the enrollment in the overall Southbridge Public Schools, as well as school-age students, including students who are not coming to the public schools, has been declining over the last 5 to 10 years. And so we would want to make sure that we're looking at enrollment projections over the next 5 to 10 years, creating those, and then looking at our facility capacity. But as it currently stands, we would have to not only seek services to rental space for central offices that are being served in Southbridge and South 25 Cole Ave, but as well as appropriate programmatic space for an alternative program with Southbridge Academy, which can be difficult to find, and we would have to sort of look at both of those costs as well as inform our renter, Head Start, to be able to find additional space too, if we were to vacate the building.
Councilman?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. So this community, I believe, was sold on the fact that the Cole Ave High School was unsafe. They needed a new facility for their children. The library was falling apart. It was just deemed unsafe. That's what I was sold on anyways. So now we have this beautiful new high school and junior high school combined for all these students. And now you're implementing Southbridge Academy for the wayward students, basically, is what you're telling us. So you're telling me that the school is safe for them, but it wasn't safe for the other students. And it's safe for the Head Start students, but it wasn't safe for the other students. I'm really confused on this. If the community was sold on the fact that we needed a new school because that school was unsafe, and you're planning on expanding a Southbridge Academy at that school, possibly, I wouldn't support that. I just wouldn't support it at all. We were sold on the fact that that school is unsafe. I even talked about it last week with some parents, and when they went to school there, they were saying it was unsafe when they went to school there 10, 20 years ago. So if it wasn't safe for those students going to the Southbridge High School and middle school, the new school, it's not safe for these students, and it's not safe for the Head Start students.
Madam Chair, point of order, we're really straying off the subject here, are we not?
No.
Well,
I'm
we're,
not.
okay, so let me rule. Thank you, Councilmana. Thank you, Councilman Teacher, for the question. We're deciding on spending $10,000 on the building, and she has strayed a bit off onto the, it's even more. You asked the question, is the building safe? That's the question for someone to answer. It was also sold on other reasons besides safety. It did not suit the needs of the general populace of pupils, the types of, for our education system.
And that was a big selling feature, along with safety issues. So I would say we got your point. How would you like to respond to her comments?
Sure. So thank you. So I can't respond necessarily to the decisions that were made back then about 25 Cole Ave being unsafe or not. Just in terms of capacity of the numbers of students being served, there's approximately 1,000 students who are being served at the Southbridge Middle High School complex. There's about 35 students in Southbridge Academy at 25 Cole Ave. And I would say approximately 60 to 80 students in the Head Start program. So about a tenth of the size of the students at Southbridge at 25 Cole Ave are being served there versus the Southbridge Middle High School program. But again, I cannot speak to the decisions that led to the creation of Southbridge Middle High School, nor actually the decisions about creating Southbridge Academy. But I can just sort of speak to what is
Well, I would
set up
hope
now.
you would research the minutes and the recordings and stuff from the meetings that they had when they were bringing this forward. That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Clare.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. On that same vein, you know, we're not going to ask the state to, you know, understand the decisions that were made at the local level, but I do seem to recall that back in 2012, one of the leading criteria for why Southbridge was still a level 4 underperforming, chronically underperforming district was because of the facility, specifically at Cole Ave, and because it was in such poor condition. And I believe that was actually, that's coming from the state. So I'm not, you know, again, I think that there's a better option here. We need to find it, and that's for everybody, especially the at-risk students that are at Southbridge Academy. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor DePietro first. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I think the question is at hand is it worth putting $10,000 into a roof on this building?
Right.
Be it inhabited or uninhabited, if the town of Southbridge is responsible for it, and we don't want it to go into further collapse, if we don't have no intentions of tearing it down, which it sounds like we don't, we have to fix the roof. I mean, that's the question. Thank you.
All set? Point. Good point. Councilor Steves.
Just a quick question. If for some reason the school turned out not to be useful for these programs, do you have an idea where they would go? I mean, is there space elsewhere in the system to put them?
So as I mentioned before, we have to look very hard at enrollment projections and capacity. Just for example, over the last year, the enrollment has fluctuated quite a lot. Not only has it declined from last year, from a year ago, by about 200 students overall for the district, we've also received an influx of approximately 100 students from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I know.
So things can happen during the year, which is why we need to take time to look at our enrollment projections and then look at our facility usage and appropriateness to make sure that our facilities we're using them appropriately. So after that look, then we would have to do probably an extensive search, potentially an RFP, to find appropriate space, not only central office space, but then school-age space, which can be difficult to find for students for alternative programs. So I can't say off the top of my head of what space would be and how much it would cost, but it would have to take a lot of work to look into that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to say that we have strayed quite far from, and that's a whole nother topic, and I think it begs to be answered, and I think the community deserves those answers, but currently, we have $10,000 listed as part of the capital budget. If you want to vote an item separately, we can take it out and vote it separately and decide where that comes to. I mean, that's certainly up to this council. You do not have to vote this all as one package. You can vote the individual items, and I'm more than open to that. So, yes.
I just want to thought, Councilor DePietro hit the nail on the head. We're talking about the $10,000 roof issue, and said I apologize because I know Mike Como, the facilities manager, who's actually came up with this capital plan as to repairs to the building. But to get to Mark's comment, what specifically is the $10,000 repair? Why do you need it? Is it liability? Are you worried about the roof leaking, falling? Tell us about that repair, because that's really what we're voting on. The council will be voting on tonight.
Sure. So as we occupy this building, there's a section of the roof that was not repaired, and it leaks every time it rains. And there are concerns that we've had to continue to replace ceiling tiles and roofing because we occupy it, and we are a landlord to the Head Start program. And so we have to keep replacing that and upgrading it every time it rains. And so this would be a patch to be able to fix it, to fix that section.
So at this point, if anyone wants to take this item out and vote it separately, speak now. Otherwise, we'll leave it in the budget as it is.
I move to take this item out and vote on it separately.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilor Clare to hold this item and vote it separately. And then Councilor Manna seconded it. All those in favor of removing the item and voting it separately? Okay, any opposed? Okay, so we will vote this item separately. We'll just continue now for any other questions. So it's a 7-1, and we will take that one up as a separate vote. Okay, we're good? Moving on. More questions on the items. Councilor Clare.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. This one would be to probably Chief Woodson. So we have a fleet of 26 cruisers, is that correct?
24.
24, okay. So replacing 2 every year, over the course of 12 years, we'll have a new fleet.
Not necessarily.
Well, if we do 2 every year.
If you do 2 every year, but they're still aging every year.
I guess my only question is, one of the cruisers is replacing a vehicle from 2011. And I'm just wondering, that just sounds like, is that one of the older vehicles that you have on the fleet, or is it just in disrepair?
Yes, if I could, through you, Madam Chair.
Please.
The vehicle that's a 2011 is currently, it's a Crown Victoria. Ford no longer makes Crown Victorias. So we're trying to get away from Crown Victorias because we can no longer find parts to repair them. So this particular Cruiser 220 that's going to be going out, I usually get up here and say we're going to scrap every car, but I just want to be clear. This car is coming off the road, being uninsured. We're going to keep it in a boneyard and use it for parts strictly. So as we still have several other Crown Vics in our fleet, so this vehicle will not be run at all, but it's going to be kept, hopefully at the DPW facility. Just so we can pull door panels or, transmission or things like that off of it, but it will not be used. So that's one vehicle that's going out. And the other one that I plan on taking off, if this is approved, is a 2003 vehicle. Oh, right. So those 2 will be rotated out and 2 new ones will be coming in.
Okay. Thank you. That was my only question.
All set. Anyone else on the list? Other questions concerning Councilor DePietro?
Again, Madam Chair, and I'm sorry I strayed earlier, but regarding resurfacing of the basketball courts in Henry Street, I brought this up in subcommittee, and I'm very surprised to see it here because I thought it was going to come back. Reason being, I physically handed 2 quotes to Parks and Rec that were somewhere in the neighborhood of half of this money for resurfacing and paint and lines. Excluding tree removal, which I don't think was even considered in this $50,000. So I'm very surprised to see it back on the list without having gone back to subcommittee again.
Mr. St. Angelo.
Thank you, appreciate that. And Councilor, I think our Recreation Director is here and our DPW Director. I have not seen these 2 quotes you have. I know that, I actually walked the site with our DPW Director, and there's a lot of concerns because if you walk the site, and I imagine you have, the roots of the trees are actually coming up underneath the basketball court. And when I talked to the DPW Director, we were very concerned at first that the 50 grand would not cover the cost of fixing these courts because of that issue. The courts she felt needed to be seriously redone, and the issue of roots had to be dealt with. We were provided 3 different quotes from the Recreation Director, the 3rd quote of which I think that our DPW Director felt was reasonable and that we could move forward with regard to that. I can't speak to your quotes because you didn't give them to me, but I would ask our Recreation Director if we've got those quotes, if those quotes are reasonable to do the job. Now, I do want to say this, Councilor. I could spend a lot of time going down and visiting that park because over the last couple of years I've been here, I found that that park was not maintained in a way that I think is appropriate for any town park. To go to that basketball court and see the amount of kids that are on that basketball court on a daily basis is amazing, because there's cracks all through the court, the grass is coming up through the court. Quite frankly, I find it embarrassing that the town would own such a facility with that kind of, in that kind of condition. I think the liability of having cracks like that is just outrageous. I think this park should have been fixed many years ago before we came to this situation. If it ends up costing us 35 or 40 grand and we get 10 grand back into free cash for next year, that's fine. But I really believe that we need to invest the dollars to make that park safe, to make it workable, and to provide a park that is not extravagant, but something we could be reasonably proud of, and that the children that we're investing in over there, I've had an opportunity to talk to them about this issue. I've actually went over there and spoke to them. They deserve, in my opinion, this investment. It's one of the few places where they actually get to go out and play and enjoy. And as I said, it's not like there's 3 or 4 kids over there. That park is packed with children on a regular basis. I think this, in any other community, quite frankly, we wouldn't even be talking about this. This would be a general maintenance issue. But I'm going to refer to Steve and to Heather as to the price of the fixing of that facility, and how your estimates, if they make sense for in terms of what they think it takes to actually put this park into a reasonable condition. With that, Steve, if you would reply.
If I could respond to that prior to Mr. Rosenfeld, I apologize. My heart's in that place, it really is. And is $50,000 gonna, I would hope that it would get us, I'm all about the $50,000. I would hope it would go further than the resurfacing. And I know it could, because, again, I physically solicited quotes. So I'm hoping that Mr. Rosenfeld is going to tell us that 50 grand is going to encompass some other stuff over there. I'd be surprised if he wouldn't.
I can only say I have the quotes with me. I can go through those quotes, or Steve has those quotes. So we'll be happy to address the quotes we have versus what you might have, so that you, because obviously we want the support of the committee, the council for this. We believe it's a good project. So with that, I'm going to ask Steve to kind of tell us, because I haven't seen your quotes, Mark. So.
And I'm not against throwing 50 grand at this. I'd love
That's
to
what's
throw
needed.
more at it. It's a very important park and a very well-used park. It's just this specific line item for this specific project, I have an issue with it.
And your comments are fair. Let's hear the answer to that from our director, both
Mr.
Recreation Director and
Mr. DePietro, I do not recall direct quotes from you, so if you have those, I would be welcome to look at them, but I don't recall you giving me quotes for the resurfacing of any basketball, the basketball court. So the quotes that we have range in price from kind of the upper 30s up to $50,000, and each one of them contain kind of different levels of resurfacing. As Mr. Santangelo pointed out in the walkthrough, the issue of the roots, only one of the quotes addressed the issue of removing the roots before doing the resurfacing. The resurfacing is not a complete tear up of the material and then reapplying. It is simply, again, taking the sections that do have roots coming up, removing those roots, repatching any places that do have significant crack damage, and then doing a resurface and repainting of the lines and everything else involved. So with that, it would look like pretty much a brand new court, but will not be a brand new court.
If I could respond to that, Madam Chair, and very carefully, I don't think I can mention the two contractors that I did physically hand to you. I guess you don't recall. One was a local guy, one was slightly out of town. But I was resurfacing, painting, the new lines, exactly what you just described. And it was half that money, I promise you. And I'll grab it if you'd like. But that's, I'm not guessing it. I know, honest to goodness. I'd love to throw $50,000 at the park. I just hate to see it all go for a resurfacing. I know is going to cost half that money. That's my only problem with it.
So I would just like to say that with any type of project of this scale or scope, we're going to have to follow proper procurement anyways. So I think if we have an estimate of what we know we really want, and it's 50,000, we probably should keep that level of money and hope that we get a really competitive project where somebody can come in and do it to our spec of what we're asking for, because there are specific requirements that we're going to require in there, and as we wrote it up, and if there is still money left over, that's when we would come back to you guys and say, hey, we've got the bids in, it was only $25,000 instead of $50,000, now you have $25,000 you can allocate to something else. But at this time, we do know that we have 3 quotes, and they were vastly different scopes of work. Most of them didn't include removing the roots, but my opinion is if you don't do something to address the existing roots down there, that you're really just throwing money away. So you really need to make some effort to address the roots.
Councilor Petro.
I just got to take it a step further. You give me $50,000 and put that out for bid, you can remove the asphalt and replace the whole darn thing. I promise you that.
Councilor
To resurface that, honest to goodness.
Councilor Petro, we're not going to be argumentative. We have to see what the bids come in at. They're looking to put aside $50,000. That's the question on the table. Hopefully it won't cost that much. Councilor Clare.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, with municipal contracts, we have to abide by things like prevailing wage, which is something that can make a huge difference. You know, that could be the difference between $25,000 and $40,000 for a longer project. I totally agree. You know, I've been involved with like paving projects and things for private enterprise, and they always come in a lot lower than we do up on the municipal level, but it's because there are certain guidelines that need to be followed for these, you know, bidding processes and everything like that. Thank you.
Question was, who was involved in getting the bids? Just the director, or were you involved, Heather? I don't recall what she's.
Both of us.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I don't want to make this discussion any longer, but evidently I'm unclear on some things, but I'm going to ask for the integrity of the process that Councilor DePietro not provide any quotes to the director or DPW director. I would hate to see someone come up with a claim of a conflict of interest, and I know that's not his intention because he was very clear at the subcommittee meeting. But I'd like to stem that and just let the process go its normal course. And I hope that's what Director Blakely was trying to allude to very gently. But because you know how things fly, let's just leave it alone. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Nash. Director Blakely, is this type of project, though, one that would require specific quotes or the ones that require you know, within a certain standard, so you can
This
just
would be
get
construction.
construction?
No, it would be construction over 10,000, so it would have to go out to a formal
bid process.
Formal bid process.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear
Yep.
on that. Okay, just want to be clear. Thank you. A lot of people may not know the differences. Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, as someone that has advocated deeply for Henry Street, I think this is money well spent. Again, this is a problem. This is an area where our kids and youth are using these courts constantly, and even adults use this whole complex. And if we don't upkeep, I mean, go around different cities and towns and do a survey and find out who still has a metal slide from the 1970s that on a hot day, no child can use. We do, because we've constantly not taken care of that park. So it's very important that we invest money in something that hasn't been invested in. Again, that's just one example. I mean, a 90-degree day, try to go down that slide. It's very, very difficult. So this is an area where, I have advocated, and I want to thank the town manager because he has kept it. And, you know, this is something that I think is needed. And I know there's been a lot of problems down there. I know people complain about fights and stuff like that. but I truly believe, I think it was Mayor Giuliani in New York. He said if you fix a broken window, people will take care of it and people will invest in it. Well, you know, if we start investing in that park and invest in that portion of our community, the minute that we had somebody step up to the plate and invest in the Joe Capillo Park a bit, that action park, that has flourished. And the students and the kids have seen tremendous progress. And I'm a firm believer, if we fix this broken window and we give these kids some pride and say, you know what, the town is gonna go into this area and we're gonna fix it up, we're gonna invest in it, I think we'll change the culture, we'll change the atmosphere, and I think it will go a long way.
That's it? Okay. So, Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. And I'll be quick with this one, too. Everyone knows I like brevity, right? At the end of the day, I've spent 4 or 5 days, different occasions I've gone down and walked this park. I know that this $50,000 is requested strictly for improvements on the basketball court. Councilor Carrasco alludes to the playground equipment and things of that nature, and I will relay that at subcommittee, it may be in the minutes, I'm not sure, there was some talk about how the playground may not be up to standards, and that is something we may want to address in the future, but I'm fully in support. I'm very cognizant of the financial situation that we're faced with and where we are with our distribution of free cash per what's before us here. I think this is a very wise use of $50,000 that benefits a great portion of our community, so I'm definitely in favor of it. Thank you.
Something new to add, Mr. DePietro?
Just very quickly, Councilor Carrasco is 100% as far as, and Councilor Nash, as far as the playground equipment itself. As a former licensed inspector, which is a federal license, we don't comply certainly in that regard, and we don't comply as far as ADA goes. I mean, I'd love to throw more money at this. I certainly would, and I'd rather see the line item say towards Henry Street Field, period. My problem is the dollar amount for the specific project. It's not throwing money at that field.
Point taken. So the options again, just like every other, you have the option to remove this item by a motion and then vote it separately, or to leave it as is in the budget as presented.
Take a comment.
Okay, sure.
To respond to Councilor DePietro, because I don't disagree. I will say this to you, that if we end up spending 35, you will see me back here asking for that 15 to be put into playground equipment. You can do it now or later, but I'm not going to come back and say, hey, keep the 15 grand, because you're right, that park needs additional repairs. So I promise you that if it costs less than 50 grand, we have a little bit left, I'm going to come back to town council and ask and engage you in the conversation about the playground and ask for you to reallocate that money for that purpose.
Councilor Carrasco.
I would like to see this voted separately, please.
Then you made
Can I make a motion to vote the $50,000 for the resurface of Henry Street basketball courts separately, please?
Second.
All those in favor of separating this out? Okay, it's unanimous, so we will take that as a separate item as well. Okay. Other items on the list. Where have we gotten to here? Anything else that jumps out people want to discuss? Questions for our department heads in the audience here?
Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I usually look down.
No, thank you very
Councilor
much.
Nash, go ahead.
Through you. I don't request any hold on this, but I do have a question through you and probably to the town manager or to Mr. Knoyer about keyless entry at $17,000. I know that was discussed with some detail at subcommittee meeting. I'm wondering if we have any new information or anything additional, because there were some concerns that had been raised. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure specifically what you're asking, but I think it's this. So the money is to get a keyless entry system. At the time, there were questions, how specifically are you going to implement it and so forth. So that, I'm not going to say it was premature, but at that point, we hadn't engaged the contractor yet in the engineering of it, the training on it, our own input on it. Since then, I've called other communities that they do it, and it's a myriad of different ways. But I think you're asking me how I think it's going to go. Something like this, because I've talked to some communities where they do a lesser degree than this, and it doesn't work very well, and they're moving towards what I'm going to kind of give you as a little overview. So the keyless entry system, so first of all, we'd have the system put on the front doors and the back doors. And all of the keys that are out there from forever would all be changed. There'd be new hard locks put on there, but the locks would be simply being unlocked by the keyless entry system. So in the programming, we'd probably have it on a timer for normal business hours to open up at 8 o'clock or 7:45 in the morning automatically, and normal hours closing at 4 o'clock or 12 o'clock on Fridays, 8 o'clock on Thursdays. Something one community has implemented kind of successfully is people who already have keys, like chairman of a committee who have to open the building for a public meeting, they would be on I think the term somebody used was a first entry group. So for example, a chairman of a committee would swipe it when they come in, and it would open up at 6 o'clock for a public meeting that went till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And that chairman would then swipe it, and in this particular system, they swipe it twice to lock it. And so that would lock it. That would be one type of group. Department heads would probably be a member of that group, or maybe a little bit expanded group. Police and fire and so forth would be on a 24/7 kind of group. So anyway, like a meeting like this, you'd have the town manager to lock it. It's kind of like what you have now. Everybody has a responsibility of when they open and when they close. There'd be a timer as a backup in case the town manager forgot, or you forgot, or some committee chairman forgot to lock it. It would override it at perhaps 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock, like a fail-safe kind of time. So, I mean, that's an overview. If you have a specific, I'll be glad to go into it. But one little quick thing I'd like to relate. So one town, it's kind of interesting, the person who relayed this to me told me the selectmen had a policy where they had a key, they wanted to open it and unlock it with their keys, and the building kept turning out to be open the next morning. And the selectmen of that community said, you know, it can't be us, somebody else must be coming in. So the next step of what they did was, because that became a problem, and they put in security cameras, which we already have, which monitor all of the entrances and so forth. So the security cameras ultimately found out the selectmen who were sure they were locking the building after their meeting weren't. They were talking on the way out. So that's why the fail-safe of the, a timer to lock it as a fail-safe afterward. But anyway, that's an overview.
Thank you. I think my questions are answered, but specifically what I was looking to get from Mr. Canoria was in regards to the discussion about open meeting law accessibility and ensuring that that door would not be locked if public meetings were occurring. And it sounds like that is what you've addressed here. So thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the chair double lock syndrome situation would seem to address a lot of the concerns I had. I guess on some level, though, if somebody else is running the meeting, that could be a little problem. But I guess counselors-wise, there'd always be a counselor, and a counselor would have a key regardless, I would imagine. If the counselors had them, they know one counselor at least would be at a meeting. So yeah, you got some bugs still to work out, but.
Right. If I may, I think really the key is, I didn't mean to make the pun, but the important thing to note is right now they're electronic. I mean, there are manual physical locks that somebody has to lock and unlock. Yeah. This will be electronic, and if somebody were, for example, resign tomorrow, their codes could be turned off tomorrow. You know, there's no keys made. You don't wonder who still has an active key to the building. So.
Councilor Steves?
Yeah, my concern about that is if everything is gone electronic, what happens? You kind of touched on this during the subcommittee. What happens if the power goes down? How long can the system operate without power?
Well, everything has a
battery. Would people get locked into the building?
Nobody would be locked in the building. Everything has a battery backup, but there are also physical openings to all doors to get out, even if they were locked. And there was no power. There's always a bar to open the doors.
If if there were no power, would somebody be able to get in the building? If for some reason they needed to?
Again, I haven't really specifically thought of that, but there are physical locks on the building as well. Custodians, DPW, police, that will all be there as well. physically getting in, like myself. If there's no power in the building, I don't have to be in the building. And there are battery backups to all of this stuff, but I mean, I haven't really examined that issue yet.
And my only future idea or comments would be overall continual cost. I would hope that that the keys can be reused if people turn them in and reprogrammed. If not, I would be concerned about the overall recurring costs. And I would also suggest down the road, if you do get the system in at some point, that you put deposits, that you require deposits, so that if they don't return their cards,
right,
that you have something to fall back on. I would strongly recommend to counselors left here down the road that they instill some sort of protocol, because that was a problem even with physical keys. People lose the keys, don't ever return them, and that's where we're at today. So I would suggest strongly down the road, if the recurring cost to replace those cards and such are going to be that you require deposit, I think any elected person or worker can be responsible for something, financially. So those are my suggestions, but that's it. Everybody else set with their questions on that? Anything else on the list before we move to voting? Okay. So then we're going to remove the, let's see, so it's 50 and 10, so $60,000, which brings us down to 9,941, let's see. Let me just get that in just to be clear. I know, brain doesn't work now. Isn't it 994? 991? Oops. Did you got it? Could somebody just say it once? I don't have it. 9999? Perfect. Just want to make sure. I didn't pull up my. All right. So with removing the 50 and the 10, we're at $999,900 is the balance of what's left in here, that we have a motion and a first then for those items. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a very quick comment. I know subsequent agenda items will also reflect back on the General Government Subcommittee meeting that took 4 or 5 hours to vet this particular item in its entirety along with the rest. So there has been quite elaborate discussion on all of these. I just want the public to know that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call on this.
Councilor O'Clair? Yes. Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor Clemens?
Yes.
Councilor DePietro?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Morales?
Yes.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
8 yes.
8 yes. So the overall 999,900 passes. We'll move now to the motion to replace the 1972 roof section of Cold Trade Building at $10,000 as a separate item. I'll get a motion on that,
So moved.
just to be,
Second.
okay. So we have a first and a second. I think we've discussed it out, but if you're willing to talk more. All right. So we will do a roll call on this too, on all three of these.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor Clemens?
Yes.
Councilor DePietro?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Morales?
Yes.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor O'Clair?
No.
7 yes, 1 no.
Motion carries. We'll move on to the final, which is a motion to resurface Henry Street basketball courts with an estimated amount of $50,000.
So moved.
Second.
More discussion on this one? Councilor Carrasco?
I would like to make a motion, an amendment, to this motion and vote to allocate $50,000 to the Edgar McCann Field Complex. I don't want it just tied to the basketball courts. So if the money is being allocated for $50,000, it can go to that whole complex. Because if it's less money, we can replace some equipment. And per the policy that has been established, if certain things cost a certain amount of money, it has to come back to the council anyways. So I would like to see the whole the $50,000 stay within that complex, that field, not just basketball courts. Because if it comes lower, and we have $5,000 less or $8,000 left over, we can replace the 1970 slide.
I'll second that.
Counselor, okay, for now discussion, Counselor Steves.
Yeah, how would you feel about phrasing it in such a way that we would do what you suggested, however, make it so that the basketball court would be the first priority, specifically in the motion?
That's the intention. That is obviously the intention. I just don't want any monies left over to go back to free cash and spent somewhere else. I think this money should be invested in this field.
Yeah, I don't have a
this
problem with
complex.
that. Yeah.
Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I respect what Councilor Carrasco is proposing. However, I feel more comfortable knowing exactly what the money is going for. And so I guess my question would be towards Ms. Blakely. The $50,000, I mean, do you feel that's the cost for the basketball, the resurfacing and taking up those routes? Or do you think it's going to come under?
I think it's going to come under that because it's not a competitive bid. It's a quote for a budgetary estimate. But with that, I wouldn't want to decrease the amount at this time, not knowing what the bids are going to come in with. I wouldn't want to tell you that it was only going to be $30,000 and then have it be $40,000. So I think we know that the $50,000 was provided to us for the purposes of removing the routes, a budgetary estimate at the time that estimate was got, which was over a year ago, which the problems have gotten worse.
Right.
So I think we want to use the $50,000 as our number. I understand the concern of keeping it in the park, but I also understand the concern that you want to prioritize the basketball court hoops first.
So, Madam Chair, I'm not through yet. So could we take this and rephrase it so where if there's any remaining money left over after the court is resurfaced, that it goes towards the Henry Street field house, or whatever the next priority is?
If I may, I will redo the motion. I can say 50,000, vote to amend 50,000 appropriation for resurfacing Henry Street basketball courts with any excess to be used in additional upgrades to the Edgar McMahon
I feel more
complex.
comfortable with that.
Then that's fine.
If that's possible, Madam Chair.
I could.
Yeah, I would just like to say I'm not comfortable with the upgrade as a blanket because that could be anything. And if we're worried about playground equipment, then I want it to be the playground equipment. I want it to take care of the children, not just the bigger people who run around doing the basketball stuff, but the little children too. So I have a problem because it could be then used for any part of that facility without ever being permissioned by the council again. So, you know.
Another thing that hasn't even been discussed.
I would say it has to be playground equipment. It has to be, you know.
Now, if I may.
Could be a slide.
If I may, does this money include brand new basketball hoops? Because you're going to rip out the ground, so are you going to replace? Because one hoop is looking one way and the other one's looking the other way. So, I mean, you have two different basketball hoops. So, I mean, it is the basketball court. So, if we're going to get nitpicky in regards to where we're going to spend the money, why not resurface the basketball court and put up brand new hoops while you're at it? I mean, because the hoops are not identical. They're not.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, hang on. Let him
I'm
finish.
sorry, I thought you pointed me.
Yeah, because.
My apologies.
Councilor Petro.
I think we're almost there. Perhaps we just add a little bit to what Councilor Carrasco has suggested. The remainder of the money stay at Henry Street. We make sure it doesn't get jacked and go anywhere else, but subject to council approval as to, is it going to be a new swing, a new set of bleachers, and so forth, but just so it doesn't get stolen from Parks and Rec and Henry Street. Kind of, sort of, I think it was Councilor Carrasco was going.
Right.
And I agree wholeheartedly.
Right, so if it stays at the field for field improvements to be reviewed by council prior to purchase or something, I mean, No? Because it's going to
Yes,
stay there, but
yes,
you're going to say it's...
I just think we just did that whole policy. So
Well,
some of
that-
those things will come back to us regardless because of the sums of the money.
If I may, it's a capital purchase, so it's different than what we're talking about in transfers in general. So the capital itself is, whatever we vote in a capital item has to stay for the purpose of the capital item unless reallocated by the council. And that is not that's not a new policy, that's just reiterated in that because it already exists in charter. And even Mr. Madaus, Attorney Madaus had mentioned that if it's a specific purpose. So,
But we're not reallocating it. That's why my motion is
Right.
to keep it there.
Right.
So
But it's
if
not
it's
to anything. That's
well,
the
it's that complex. So there's a lot of need in that complex. So
Exactly.
it's just, I mean, it could be playground equipment. I think we have a professional, we have a director. Let them.
well, I'm going to let the manager speak first because his hand's been up longer.
Thank you. I believe it's our intention, Stephen, clarify. I mean, it kind of doesn't make sense that we fix up the pavement for the basketball court and then leave stupid hoops up that are backwards or don't look right. So I would say that we're going to do the basketball court and hoops as one complete job, is the way I would say. And then anything that's left over, I agree that it should be used for playground equipment. That would, frankly, as me and Steve have had conversation about, that'd be our intention. What playground equipment we repair, I think, is going to be dependent upon how much money is left over. You know what I mean? So if there's enough money to fix a slide, maybe we'll do the slide, or, you know, we can't tell you until we know how much money we have to what we could fix for the playground. But I think I'm okay, Steve, you're okay to say that, you know, the original money is intended to do the basketball courts, including the basketball net, you know, basketball nets. Any leftover is to be used for park equipment, playground equipment specifically. I'm okay with that, Steve, if you think that works.
Yeah, and there was kind of built in, as Heather alluded to, you know, this is a quote-based estimate, and the assumption was that anything that was related to resurfacing the court would be placed into basketball hoops and things like that. But at the same time, if the basketball court takes $50,000 to resurface, that was the priority, and the hoops stay as they are. But in the scope of the project, it was not laid out by the company that lays out the surface about hoop replacement, but it was kind of in the plan to make sure that those were replaced given the money. And as Mr. Carrasco says, there is a lot more money into that park that could be spent. If you recall, just a few years ago, we used some community block development grant money to put together a plan for redeveloping that park, and we were talking just shy of $4 million. And so a lot of these projects kind of come from the idea that you know, we didn't want, well, at least when I came on as a recreation director, this plan had just been approved. I wasn't going to say and go into it thinking, okay, we have this plan, how are we going to get this accomplished? Now that that plan is not really being accomplished, now we have to go to these other smaller fixes, and this is just one of them. In terms of the playground, that money was requested. It was decided that that money, we would focus on the basketball court, and if there was money left over, some of that could be used for that. And then it's also in our next year's capital request for the replacement of the playground. So at least we can start with one piece of the facility and keep adding pieces until it is a quality facility that we're all proud of.
Councilor Manna first. Are you all set?
I'm all set, yeah.
Councilor Clare?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I think the big takeaway that we all agree with is, you know, we all recognize we have to put more money into the parks in town. And we want to see if, you know, this full $50,000 allotted and put into the parks. If we amended the amended motion to read $50,000 appropriated for resurfacing Henry Street basketball courts with any access to be used as additional upgrades to, what's the field called? Edward McCann Field playground equipment, would that be more palatable?
Yeah, so if I may, because I think she's just kind of coming to me because I'm pretty not happy with it. Well, I mean, I didn't mean that previously. Yeah, playground equipment, because I guess, here's what I see. hopefully we can reuse some of the components to basketball, the pipes, whatever. But we've replaced those hoops, and people continue to damage those hoops. And I feel bad for the younger children who we're not replacing their equipment, which we keep hearing about, that I went on that slide as a kid. So, you know, that concerns me. So I guess I just want to make sure that if we're going to do something, it's going to be taken care of. And secondly, if I might add, I know that there's at least $14,000 or more left in last year's free cash allotment to items that we were told needed to be done or needed to be allocated for in the rec department, because I've received the printouts. And why can't we just use a little bit of that to pay for the hoops or something so that it's not part of this? We didn't use that money, as apparently, because it's still there, and we were told the items for that to be used. Apparently, that's unencumbered at this point. I think it's 14 and change. So why can't that be used for something so that this money will go towards what we're talking about? So
we 2 years ago, we allocated $25,000 for this park. That money has been spent minus a few $100s. So the Henry Street area, and that again was just kind of getting us started on the scope of what is needed at that facility. The monies in which you were talking or referring to, those are for other parks. So those were for Morris Street, West Street, and they are being spent as we can get projects going. You know, to be quite blunt, I work 20 hours a week for this town. I have no staff and a DPW department, as Heather has continuously told this council many, many times, is also understaffed. So the money given is there, yes, and we are working on these projects. In relation to that basketball court and the hoops, when I started, actually, Mr. DePietro was very kind to replace one of them. And that basketball hoop is still standing. It's still in pretty much the same condition as he installed it. And so we're grateful for his installation. And it is also a testament that when we do provide things that are available, they are more respected. Obviously, things will happen. Things need to replace. That is just normal wear and tear. You can go to any community that you want and things will wear and tear. Things will be used. And it's a testament to use, I believe, more than damage most of the time.
Councilor Carrasco.
Yeah, I just wanted to just correct or speak on a subject that our chairwoman stated in regards to the basketball hoops. Those basketball hoops had not been replaced in over 30 years. So one hoop was broken once, and it was not replaced for over 3 years. So kids were playing on a full court basketball hoop with one hoop until Mr. DePietro and his company came and welded that one basketball hoop, and it's still standing. So those basketball hoops have not been replaced in over 30 years. So again, we've never spent money at Henry Street. I mean, look at the slide. It's 1970s. That original basketball hoop is over 30 years old. I think it's time to do it. So however we want to change the language so we can keep it in playground, I'm willing. Again, I don't want to keep beating at that horse. I think we're all in agreement.
We're all in agreement. Yes.
So let's just change the language and vote on this.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I do hope we're all in agreement that it makes sense to take this step, but just for process, I want to be absolutely certain. I know that with capital being a concern, but what's more, if this is coming out of free cash, should we not agree to vote it this way tonight, and we only allotted this money toward the basketball courts? Would money need to be recertified that was left over so we wouldn't get this additional work done this summer?
Ms. Chamenja.
Through you. The way that we would approach this project as a whole, right, is that we would be looking at, and we'd be working with the vendor to looking at taking the pavement and taking care of the pavement for the actual basketball court. I think our second priority would be if we believe that there's excess money to take care of, if we need to replace the basketball hoops and the piping, if we need it or not, we'd have to make that decision. And then what would be left over, we would, assuming town council appropriates it that way, that what would be left over would be strictly for playground equipment, depending upon what that balance is. We would determine what piece of equipment we could purchase. That would be the way I think we would approach the project as a whole. And if you do the motion in that way, you'll allocate it in the order of what we discussed, if that fits the council's needs.
I don't think my question's been answered.
I'm sorry?
If we don't agree, if we don't vote it that way, if we just left the motion, the original motion, Henry Street basketball court, and it came in at $40,000, that $10,000 would need to be recertified, correct? Before we can do anything
No,
with it?
the allocation would be in a special article for 50 grand, so I think I could come back to town council and ask you to reallocate that 10 grand towards
So we
playground
wouldn't have to wait
equipment.
until October to
We
be
would not,
recertified?
no, sir. Because it would go into a special account,
That's all I needed to
specifically
know.
50 grand for
That's
that
all I needed
account.
to know. Thank you.
Councilor Steves.
Just a quick question, I guess, of process here. I think we have like 3 different possible amendments floating on the floor that haven't been seconded. I would like to second Councilor Clare's amendment, which was about 10 minutes ago.
With the playground equipment at the end?
Yeah.
So are we in good shape with that then? So you leave it as to resurface Henry Street basketball courts and the excess for additional, any excess for additional playground equipment at the Edgar J. McCann Field, or Edgar J. McCann?
That's essentially what you said, yeah.
I know, I had written it down 2 ways, so.
Yeah.
Unless you want to reread it for the clerk to. Did you have it?
Yeah, what's the field name? One more time.
Edgar J. Yeah.
I get them
Edgar
mixed
Edgar
up, I'm
J.
so
Yeah.
sorry.
Edgar J.
It's
Edgar, yeah.
Edgar McCann.
Edgar McCann is fine.
Yeah.
I think there's a J.
50, and actually, I'm gonna change it just very little bit. $50,000 appropriated for resurfacing Henry Street basketball courts with any excess to be used for basketball hoops and as additional upgrades to the McCann Field playground equipment.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
It's getting longer and longer. Yeah, it does. I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, so now we have a new motion and a second.
Second?
We got a second?
Yes, sir. We have a second, yeah. Just for clarification, we
I'll
actually have
remove
2.
my motion.
That's what I was going to ask
Okay.
about, yeah. And
Okay,
would you
so-
care to remove your second? Okay.
How are we doing?
Okay, so
Okay.
now
We're
we have
clear we have one motion on the floor now?
Yes.
Great. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we're going to take a roll call vote.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
Counselor DePietro?
Yes?
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Morales?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor O'Clair? Yes. Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
8 yes.
Motion carries. And that would wrap up our free cash at this point. All right.
Except for water and sewer.
Shall we move on now? Agenda item number 15, vote to appropriate $350,000 from water retained earnings for the FY 2019 capital budget water main improvements.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Councilor Steves.
Since this section was relatively short for the discussion, I'll read it from Gen Gov meeting minutes. In this case, Heather mentioned that 3 or 4 places in town are problematic as far as the water main goes. Funds would be coming from the capital retained earnings, which is now a little over $2 million. Councilor Nash asked if the $350,000 would cover labor and materials or engineering and evaluation as well, which I'm not sure we get an answer. I think it covers everything. Let's see. Heather mentioned that she thinks the department can do all of the work, all of it in-house, enlarging some lanes, lining older pipes. That's what the essential basis of the work is. And we approved it unanimously.
Okay. Any other questions really on this? Well, I know she's here. Is there?
That's the
Correct.
engineering and bidding work, not
is.
the actual lining itself.
Okay.
I just,
Thank you.
Correct his minutes.
Thank you.
All right, I believe we all know pretty much what all this is going towards. Is there any other discussion then? Seeing none, we will take a roll call on this.
Counselor DePietro?
Yes?
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Morales?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor O'Clair? Yes. Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
8 yes.
Motion carries. Agenda item 16, vote to appropriate $71,000 from sewer retained earnings for the FY 2019 capital budget as follows. Repair concrete platforms and docks, $21,000. Headworks floor repair, grind and epoxy, $50,000.
So moved.
Second.
Do you want to report on that, or?
If you'd like me to. That was one of our items as well. Heather summarized the issues as follows. There's a bunch of different things actually that don't seem to be part of this particular list, but she was talking about several different things: refurbishing the 2 old pumps, replacing a 25 to 30-year-old aeration tank that no longer has spare parts, working on inflow and infiltration leaks into the sewer system, replacing an oil furnace by extending the natural gas line to the Headworks building, fixing Schott, South Street, and Dennison pump stations, fixing the outfall pipeline at the wastewater treatment plant, and moving big trees, upgrading the generator at the treatment plant, and sandblasting and painting the treatment plant. She said that some work will start immediately. Some has already been engineered. There's no clear solution to the Schott pump issue. Ponding will vary by the lifespan of the project itself. Councilor Nash suggested that putting some of these projects out to bid with others things that are already in the works because of total cost, $3.5 million. Heather mentioned that she could pull the big ones out and just seek the money for engineering now. Councilor DePietro said that he hates studies for work that may never happen, but agreed that the engineering can be a half to 3/4 of the sum of these projects' costs. And this is the grand total of sewer enterprise fund borrowing, which is $3,585,000. So that's obviously far more than just this particular item. But so that was some of these things were kind of included in there.
Thank you, very thorough. Any questions on the items that we're looking at voting on?
I just want to clarify, all those other items that he mentioned are actually going to come back for votes for actual borrowing votes. Okay. So these are just the ones that we're removing out of sewer retained earnings. They're not borrowings. Okay. Okay. So those are actually coming up on another DPW agenda at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other discussion, roll call, please.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Morales?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor O'Clair?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
Counselor DePietro?
Yes?
8 yes.
Motion carries. Okay, agenda item number 17. Vote to amend the vote taken on 5/21/18, agenda item number 17, for the FY 2019 Sewer Enterprise Fund budget to include the following language. Quote, provided, however, that the town manager may, pursuant to his managerial discretion, reallocate up to the greater of $5,000 or 30% of any of the sum specified to and from any of the various purposes presented in the town manager's budget report within the department without prior approval of the town council, end quote.
So moved.
Second.
So as we did that policy on oversight on the manager in regard to money, these two accounts also needed that language, and unfortunately that night we didn't do that, so they are here tonight for vote, so that FY 2019, the small items and such that we've discussed will just continue. Councilor Steves.
Madam Chair, just for clarification here, back when we did those votes for the main budget and for this current fiscal year budget and next year's budget, we also threw in we phrase it as the various line item purposes, just for keep it consistent.
Oh, it didn't. Okay.
It didn't print up that way for both 17 and 18.
Right. Specified to and from any of the various purposes. Oh, line item.
Various line item purposes is the way we phrased it.
Okay. Can we agree that that was how we accepted that policy? Line item purposes.
Who made the motion?
Who made the motion?
Monique?
Does anybody?
I did. Counselor
You did, okay. Would you accept that friendly amendment?
The inclusion of line item?
Yes.
Who
Right.
seconded it?
I seconded it.
We did make sure that that was, because we wanted to be clear that you could not just take 30% of an entire multi-million-dollar budget and do what you wanted with it.
Right.
So, all right, great. Okay, we'll do, it's an amendment. We'll take a hand vote on this. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries.
Opposed?
Oh, excuse me, sorry, missed that. I thought I saw a hand over there. You're hiding behind Councilor Stevens. 1 to 7, motion still carries. Do you want to make any comment? No? Okay. Agenda item number 18, vote to amend the vote taken on 5/21/18, agenda item number 18 for the FY 2019 Water Enterprise Fund budget to include the following language. Quote, provided, however, that the town manager may, pursuant to his managerial discretion, reallocate up to the greater of $5,000 or 30% of any of the sums specified to and from any of the various line item purposes presented in the town manager's budget report within the department without prior approval of the town council.
Similar.
Second.
Okay, more discussion, or we added a line item, so I think we're clear. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? It's a 7-1. Motion carries. Okay. Agenda item 19, vote to amend Schedule 5 for elected and appointed personnel to update the election and registration registrar of voters clerk rate to $1,365 per year to be consistent with other clerk stipends. The amount is included in the FY 2019 elections budget.
Second.
Okay. For the record, we have one less voter. Any discussion on this item? Councilor Nash?
I'll try to buy a little time because I don't remember hearing about this. Was this in a subcommittee?
Yes.
Did we take it up in the general government?
I thought we took it. Was it?
We did the schedule.
I remember the Schedule 5
as a whole.
Wasn't this one in?
The specific item.
The specific one related to registration or election registration registrar of voters just doesn't ring a bell. That's why I'm curious. And I didn't see it in any minutes.
Do you remember? I thought we did this schedule. Or did you just ask for it to be put on? I cannot honestly remember at this very second. I thought it looked familiar when I saw it, but.
Yes, we already did this schedule, but we neglected to update the rate for the clerk in there. So it's budgeted, and we discussed it when we reviewed her budget, but we just didn't make the change.
Okay.
So I believe then that's, you asked just to be put on because of that, just to make sure that it was up to par with what we've already.
Yes, Maddie brought it to my attention that the Schedule 5 wasn't updated for her rate. So we're just bringing it back for that particular purpose.
Okay.
If anyone has any issues, we can resend it. It's just occasionally things happen that need to just be taken care of. Okay. All right. Very good. See,
Thank you.
Still just 7. We will take the vote. All in favor? And 1 is not here. Yes, motion carries. Moving on. Agenda item number 20. Vote to approve the transfer of $4,500 from water legal to water prevailing wage.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Discussion? Question? Councilor Steve?
Unfortunately, Mark isn't here. Did this go to DPW? Or can Heather explain exactly why this is necessary?
This didn't go to DPW. We have a couple water bills that are due and that are over budget, and I think we were all hoping that we would be able to do the transfers, because these would be transfers we would have been able to do, but we didn't vote that section. So in discussion, we said, well, we'll bring it right to council. The prevailing wage is, we get an offset. We don't pay Whitewater full prevailing wage. We only pay them offsets for when they have to do repairs on hydrants and things of that nature. So they get paid full prevailing wage. I don't want to confuse anybody. But because they're already working for us, they only get a differential. So we actually kind of get a benefit because we don't have to pay, the town only has to pay the differential. So we know we budget that, but we don't ever know exactly how much that's going to be, because obviously it depends on how many repairs we need to do and how many hydrants get hit or how many water main breaks we have. Those are the things that usually dictate when we have prevailing wage. And the same thing with the testing. The state actually sometimes comes up in and says, these aren't required tests, but we would like you to take these additional samples, and they do it to see what they're going to have as backup to new testing. So that's the next item. Okay. So there was more testing than we expected this year.
Okay, thank you.
And if I do recall our conversation, I believe after that meeting when we had not voted on those items, you had talked about you needed to get some bills paid. Correct. And as our general policy is transfers, that we were trying to get right to council at times. And there was not a DPW before this meeting. So I believe that's where that came on the agenda. So thank you for clarifying again.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All those in favor of this transfer? Opposed? So we are still at 7. Motion carries. Same with the next one. Vote to approve a transfer of $2,500 from water electricity to water testing and evaluation.
So moved.
Second.
Questions on this to our DPW person? No? All those in favor? 7 unanimous. Agenda item 22, vote to accept a grant award. Let me clarify this. This did not come to subcommittee because the manager spoke with me in regard, you have it in your packet, the information, you can see the dates on it. We were at a unique opportunity to have a grant to train police officers for people with mental disabilities, I believe, I don't want to say that incorrectly, and to train our officers to handle mental health issues that arise. And it was very quickly done. It was only awarded like on Thursday, and it was asked if we could just get it right on the agenda because the training started today, I believe. So he actually had to get permission from them, knowing the award wasn't even going to be accepted possibly, and we were all hoping that we'd accept that award tonight. So something like that, right? And that's why it's on the agenda. Before we can ask questions once we do the motion. So just wanted you to know. Vote to accept a grant award in the amount of $21,538 from May 18th to June 30th for the proposed training reimbursement project for 7 police officers to attend crisis intervention team training.
So moved. Second.
Okay, discussion. You can do a better job, I'm sorry.
Well, you did a pretty good job there, Council Chairwoman. This is a grant from the Department of Mental Health. It's for $21,538. What this is going to enable us to do is my department, back in September, we took what's called the One Mind Pledge, and it's sponsored by the International Chiefs of Police Association, where every single department, in fact, in Massachusetts alone, 182 police departments are doing it. And what it comes down to, and I could stand here all night and talk about it, is we're going to get better training on mental illness, and it couldn't come at a better time. I can yell facts to you, but 1 in 4 people is going to be affected by some type of mental illness, whether it's themselves, a family member, a friend, spouse at some point in their life. Just today, for real world knowledge, we lived it. Today we had 3 people, all suicidal, all different times within a 2-hour period in Southbridge, today alone. So what this is allowing our police officers to do is 20 or 30% of the workforce at our police department is going to have a 40-hour training, and they're going to be part of a crisis intervention team, and what we'll do is stagger them so they all work different shifts. They'll be experts on dealing with people with mental illness. This is a great opportunity. It's a grant. It's not costing the town per se any money. It's more than $20,000 in training that we're getting for free, and to me, it's a no-brainer as a chief. And it was rushed late, and I appreciate the members of the council and the town manager for working with me on this. It kind of came in at the last minute, and they said they had an opportunity, some funding available, so we jumped on it.
Okay, Councilor Carrasco.
Thank you.
Thanks for the support, guys.
Councilor? Steve.
Also wanted to say thank you. Having worked in group homes and things like that, it's very important that people have greater understanding of what happens with people with mental illnesses out in the streets. And so many people don't. I mean, they see things and they don't understand why it's happening and what's happening. And I'm very much in favor of the fact that we have police officers doing this. Thanks.
In my original training, we received none of this training. Now this is a huge thing. We deal with it every single day. Yeah. So it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
This is just one of those types of things that just needed to get done, and I didn't feel that anyone would oppose. So, on that note, all those in favor of accepting this grant, it is unanimous vote.
Thank you again.
Number 23, vote to accept the donation of equipment valued at $300 from a local citizen to the Southbridge Cable Studio.
So moved.
Okay, and we all have that memo. Any discussion or concerns? We appreciate it. Is a oops, we had the memo. I missed it. Thank you. Mine's in here somewhere. Just so everybody knows, we have a donation made by, where is he? Ryan Servant, a local citizen, of an Epiphan X2 streaming device to the town TV station, and this is supposed to allow live streaming on pretty much just about anyone who has internet. They'll be able to see live streamed videos rather than having to wait for anyone to upload things. So we thank him for his generous offer to provide, and I believe install and all, and make sure it's all working. Councilor Clare?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, he's actually in attendance in the audience this evening.
Right.
He's standing up right back there. So thank you very much, Ryan. I know that perusing some of the social media, there are a lot of people who don't have, the local cable access and the charter, and they have to wait for the YouTube. So I know that this is going to be hugely appreciated throughout the community, so thank you very much.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. This motion carries. 24, vote to approve the injured on duty IOD insurance renewal with Maya at a 4.93% premium increase for FY19, which covers uniformed police and fire officials.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Motion carries. 25, vote to approve the property liability and workers' compensation insurance renewal with Maya at a 5.2% increase, or approximately $30,000 per year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries. This is the one that we'll have some discussion. Actually, I forgot to, I have some papers. So the next item is vote to approve the insurance premium proposal in the amount of $17,269 for the vacant former middle high school at 80 Marcy Street. And for public knowledge, General Government Subcommittee did not recommend this as motioned. However, there have been some changes. So let's get a
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So, and actually I've got most recent, the town manager, I think you've all got this in your emails.
Email, yes.
Okay. So I don't know if you want to explain some of that. I had the office print the latest email out so that everybody has a copy with it. Do you want to explain anything from the general government? Your notes or not?
I actually don't have that one with me.
Okay.
So I'll let him.
Sorry, you can explain.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, we had a lot of discussions about this with general government to discuss issue, and as you can see on the agenda, it was a negative recommendation to town council, and it wasn't that the town council, I think, didn't want to insure the building. They asked me to reach out to the owner of Arch Street Development, a gentleman named Rich Relish, to see, since this project was taking longer than expected, to see if his firm would pay the cost of the insurance on this building, because we got a notice that as of June 30th, Maya would be dropping this off their insurance plan, and we would have to go out and get separate insurance for this particular building. I've had a lot of discussions with our town finance director and with Mindy, our tax collector, treasurer. I would discuss this with Mr. Relish, and frankly, I was very pleased, and I got to admit to myself, or to council, that I was surprised. He agreed that at the time of the closing, he would give us the 17,000, which was it, 269. He would give it to us, and then obviously he expects it if we get, obviously if we don't use, that's a full year cost of insurance, but if we don't use that full year and we cancel the policy from the time of the date of the closing, that he would be entitled to any refund that we get from the insurance company for that. So he has agreed to that. I provided town council through email today, because it's just all finalized today, a copy of an agreement that he has already signed. I have not signed it yet, waiting for town council. But I was very pleased to see that he would reimburse us. And I want to point out that he has no legal requirement to do this. He's doing that because he cares about this project. He wants to invest in Southbridge. He's going to be investing. He's already invested over $300,000 in what we call soft costs of this project. So Harry's investing some more money to be able to protect that building and essentially pay for the insurance. So that's the process. With your vote, I guess you'd have to vote that item tonight, and with your vote, I would sign that agreement and we would move forward. And at the time of closing, that would be part of the legal agreement at the time of closing, that he would give us those funds.
So I just want to elaborate slightly on that. Two things. One, I did question the amount, because on the backup documents it was $17,100 was what Mindy had requested, and what came to subcommittee was the full $17,269, which included terrorism, premium taxes for terrorism. And I did call on that and said, what is exactly would you recommend? And she said, we generally don't do the terrorism. I was surprised to see that. Most of us will see that now on our insurances that come in. If you want to be protected for terrorism, you get to pay extra. So she was only looking for the 17.1. That's what should have come. So that would be the first change. I want to thank the committee. I was not serving on that committee that evening, but I was there and I was vocal about this, because I had grave concerns to find out that a premium had changed from in the 5,000 or 6,000 range or whatever it was up to the 17,000, because Maya had realized that it was a vacant building, and vacant buildings are much more costly to insure. And while we're all looking forward to this building being renovated and repurposed and on the tax rolls by this developer, certainly waiting 3 years while they get their ducks in a row was a problem. And it was a very healthy debate and discussion and concern. I know I voiced mine pretty loudly, and my feeling was that these people should have been paying right along, and there was concern, how are they going to pay and that type of thing. So ultimately, even being paid back, I would have liked to encourage them to have paid up front, or at least a portion, but at least they're willing to cover the cost when the closing happens. However, I would like to make an amendment, or I'd like to ask someone to make the amendment, I'll make the amendment either way, besides the 17-1, that I want it to be stated for future councils, so that people realize what happens down the road. And if it doesn't close, that we should have some language in here that gives some direction beyond another extension, perhaps, because this was not included in another extension. So I would suggest this. Also point out that he has substantial, I believe it's up to almost $400,000 now. So one of the strong points I made was, if that building burnt and we weren't insured, he has an investment he will lose too. So he should be willing, regardless, to pay this money, because it's his pocket too. So I'm glad to see that he agreed to that. I would ask that part of this 17-1 change would then be full premium, with an inclusion to say that full premium to be paid back to the town by Arch Street Development at the October closing, or at the closing, as per agreed letter dated 6/14/18, oh, 6/4, excuse me, yes, 6/4, 6/4/18. I would even further love to add, any contract extensions or successor agreement shall include purchaser's required insurance coverage clause. And that would sort of kind of put it in a manager's, to try to work that in the next time around. Because if we're going to extend, that's to our decision, the town's decision if they choose to extend a contract with somebody. Therefore, they should renegotiate that somewhat to include this type of thing. If it's going to be more than 3 years, it should include that. Okay, so, yep.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no problem with your concern, your question. I think that obviously if we do an extension, that extension has to come back to town council.
Yeah.
And I would expect that, obviously knowing where we are now, that will be negotiated. If we have to do an extension, that'll be negotiated. And obviously you will know that clearly because you have to vote on the extension. So if you'd like to do it and say that statement now, that's fine, but it's clearly within the town council's power to review that extension and to approve it or not. So I would suggest that council simply not approve it if it's not in that agreement.
Right. I just think for posterity's sake, it adds some meat to, it's in the records, it's in the minutes as part of it, and therefore it gives direction. It helps the future council, gives direction. I don't know. I mean, it was just it's just one option. Councilor Steves.
2 questions. Well, a question first off to the town manager. So what do you think the actual probabilities of getting this thing done this year are? This has been lingering since I got elected.
So Councilor Steves, that's a really good question. I think the probability is high, but I can't say for sure because it's really in the state's control as to when they do that last round of tax credits. All expectations by the developer and in contact with the state is it's going to happen before October so that we can close. But I would not make an ironclad commitment on a timing issue for whenever the state does whatever it does. So I wouldn't make that promise, but in talking to Rich, he believes that it will close in October. But again, he's in the same problem I am. We don't know for sure. So, and if it is, we'd have to come back to you and ask for extension, which, frankly, I'm hoping we don't have to do, but we are well invested in this now.
Yeah.
And if it's another few months, we're going to have to do whatever it takes according to whatever the state does,
So what is the current expiration date?
The expiration date on the contract, I think, is the end of October. I'll double check it and give you the exact date, but I think it's the end of October.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my second point is I'll make that motion that you just read.
That's fine. The whole or the portion? Do you want the whole thing, or you just want letter dated?
Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay. Any further discussion?
Just apologize. Could you just read that one more time?
Yep.
So I understand
Yeah, I would
what
definitely
we're
read it
trying to
another
do.
time. Okay. So vote to approve the insurance premium proposal in the amount of $17,100 for the vacant former middle high school at 80 Marcy Street full premium to be paid back to the town by Arch Street Development at October closing as per agreement letter dated 6/4/18. Any contract extensions or successor agreements shall include purchasers' required insurance coverage clause.
That's fine. The only thing I would suggest is, and you didn't say it the first time, is take out the October. You took it out.
Yeah, we took that, so.
Yeah, so just take out the word October and I think we're good.
At, but at expected closing? Or at
Just the
current
closing,
contract
whatever the
closing?
actual closing is, because
No,
it
no.
could be earlier. Don't know.
Okay.
So whatever the closing date is, and of course, if it goes beyond that, we're going to come back for extension anyway.
Right, so any extension, yeah, I could live with that. Are we good with that one then, if we leave out the word October? That makes sense, because if it goes beyond, you'd have to get the extension. I'll agree with that. You're good with, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Through you. Just a question, because I'm just a quick concern here that the memo or the agreement dated 6/4 is going to be pretty much null and void because it lists the amount of $17,269.
Just, he'll amend it in 2 seconds. There's no big
It's
deal.
less
We'll
than
just
that,
get
yeah.
you. Yeah, I'll call him tomorrow, we'll get the amendment for that amount, and I'll sign the contract with the 17,100 number.
Okay, so his agreement won't actually be dated 6/4, it'll be dated
Well,
6/5.
Yeah, you're right, there'll be a new date.
We can do that, but remember, I'm just saying full premium to be paid back, whatever that ends up, if 17.1 were to change to something else. But he's agreed to pay it back, he's agreed to pay back more.
But our motion has referred to this document dated 6/4, and that's my contention. It's not going to hold me up, but I don't particularly like it.
Do you want to put 6.5? Do you want to?
Well, I hope we get it done. I just want it to be correct for the record, especially if that agreement comes back dated 6/5 and someone looks for a memo dated 6/4.
That's a good point.
Madam Chairman?
Yep.
How about if we do it simply as we have no amendments to the agreement so far, and it refer instead to the amended agreement between the town of Southbridge and our street development, and then the date won't really matter, as long as we only know this is the only amendment to the contract.
Whatever it takes to appease everybody's good with me.
Okay, that's fine.
That solves the date problem.
Yeah,
But you're right,
that's
the date problem probably will be tomorrow. If I can get a hold of him tomorrow, it'll probably be tomorrow, so the date won't work. You're correct.
But if you're saying to an amended agreement, that's an agreement the council has to vote on, so I'm.
Well, we're voting on this. This is the amendment.
Well, the option is then to leave in the whole amount, and if the premium comes in less, he'll just end up paying less. We can leave it as $17,269, which is what he agreed to, and it'll be less. We'll say, oh, we don't need that, we only need 17.1.
That's fine too, because, I mean, we're going to get back to the difference anyway.
I would just like to have it on, like, for what he said, and that, because if you're saying you're going to make an amendment, we're going to say as an amendment, but we don't have that amendment, we don't have that legal document.
Just leave it
so.
at 17. He ain't going to carry about 100 bucks or whatever. We'll just leave it this way, and he's going to get reimbursement for the difference, that's all. He's going to get the money
Yeah,
back.
but to your point, we're stating a letter. His letter says he's paying back that. I'm agreeable to leave the amount in, and when you all propose to him and say it's only going to be 17.1, that's all he's got to pay.
That's fine.
But that way, his letter right now, what we're doing right now is accurate. So I agree with you on that.
Okay, that's fine. I don't
Okay.
want to hold it up anymore.
All right, all right, one more time, vote to approve the insurance premium proposal in the amount of $17,269 for the vacant former middle high school at 80 Marcy Street, full premium to be paid back to the town by Arch Street Development at closing as per agreed letter dated 6/4/18. Any contract extension successor agreements shall include purchasers' required insurance coverage clause. And that's what we agreed to. Yes, everybody good? All right. All those in favor? All right, yes, go forth and insure the building. Great.
Oh, can I comment just briefly on this? So we believe there's enough money in the account to do this right now, but we're not absolutely sure yet. Mindy will know better as we get closer. So we may have to come back for some minor adjustment to that account to make sure we have the full amount. Just want you to know that because there's a little bit of, we're close on that number. We want to let you know that we may have to come back for some small adjustment.
Okay. Well, you got a couple more meetings, so we should be able to fit it in. All right, great. Thanks. That was good. We just saved the town $17,000. Sure did. Number 27, vote to accept a Mass DOT grant in the amount of $150,000 to extend the perimeter fencing around the Southbridge Municipal Airport.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on this item. I think we beat this one up a bit. For the record, we are down to 7 again. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Agenda item 28, vote to accept a Mass DOT grant in the amount of $1,553,703.05 for the Southbridge Municipal Airport Reconstruct Airport Apron.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on this. Councilor Manna.
I'm going to be the one to ask, where did the 5 cents come from?
As most of us know, we've talked about this up here quite a bit in terms of what the state's giving us to do this project, and that the town did put in.
question because I didn't hear what you said.
What's the 5 cents for? I don't think we can. I don't know. Councillor Nash, maybe you know.
Chair, through you, perhaps it's just to rehash this a little bit, but this is the grant that was associated with the $80,000 that we appropriated as our matching grant funds, correct? Okay. What's the timeline for completion of this project? I know we discussed it in committee.
John's here, but the last I thought it was at the end of June is the timeline, but we expect it to go a little later than that. John, you want to give us the specific dates? I know you're trying to finish it, or at least get it escrowed until the end of June for the state's fiscal year, but give us the closest date.
The town manager is referring to John Henry from Stanley.
Hello. There are 2 fiscal years, so part of the project has to be finished by June 30th, and then the rest of it will be completed by July 19th. 45-day total contract.
Thank you.
And thank you for staying in the audience for hours. Okay. Any other questions on this project? No. All those in favor? Just grant acceptance. It's unanimous. This motion carries. Number 29, vote to ratify Stantec's change order in the amount of $16,466 for additional services required to complete the design phase of the GA apron reconstruction and fencing improvements at the Southbridge Municipal Airport.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And this is why that 1.5 is 1.5 now, because the state is covering the additional costs within their portion of the grant. It is not costing us anything additional within that, say, $80,000 that we've already appropriated. Yep. This money is being covered by the state. It was some additional amounts needed. Okay,
So yeah, just to clarify that, right? The state is paying for the construction part of that project. The $16,466 is part of the original money we put in. That is, I believe the cost of that is to gain back some of the airplane parking spots to give us additional parking spots, because the original design cut out a significant number of spots, and this change of design is going to get a number of spots back, and I don't know the exact number. If you'd like to know, John can give us that number, but it's an additional so many spots is what it is, which brings in additional revenue to the town. Every spot we get back, every parking spot we get back.
These are airplane tie-downs that exist currently, and when they do this project, as you say, they will lose some, and in the original design, they thought they wouldn't lose as many. I think it was 40, they're back to 43 versus 49. Are you, you're sitting over there. I thought you left. You're hiding.
I'm just sitting closer, so save my walk.
Yes. You understand what we do up here.
So what's the question? How many spots?
Yeah, do you know what happened with the tie-downs, which are revenue makers, obviously, for the...
Yeah, but just to clarify, so this change order is for our design services.
It's the design part, right?
Right, which is already included in the grant amount that you just approved.
That's what I said.
And it was 95% of that's paid for by the state. To clarify the spots, it was 47 spots existing when we redid the design. Up to current standards, the spots dropped down to 32. So then we added some additional pavement, which got us back up to 43 spots. So it's a net of 11 spots.
Net how many? Net how many new spots?
There's 11 additional spots.
11, okay.
So the total, they'll be down 4 from what they had originally, but better than down.
But
we're
up,
going
back up 11, right?
The original design plan would have been 11 short. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So again, this goes back to there was additional cost to it that the state itself has increased this grant to the 1553703. So the change order didn't really affect us. Okay, any other questions on the change order? All those in favor? It's unanimous. 8, this motion carries. Agenda item 30, vote to ratify the contract agreement between the Town of Southbridge and ET&L Corporation in the amount of $1,451,113.50 for the Southbridge Municipal Airport GA apron reconstruction and fencing improvements.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this is these are the contractors who will be doing all the work.
Yeah.
And they've got the fencing and everything included in this. All right, any questions to our, none? All right, all those in favor? It's unanimous, motion carries. Fourth and Build. And I encourage anyone who has not been up to the airport lately, go. The diner's open and lots of planes in and out. And now if you bring your kids, they can watch the trucks digging. And that's always fun too. And the flights, yeah, right, we have everything going on. The flight school's in, so go and check it out. It's a wonderful place, especially on a beautiful sunny day. Agenda item number 31, vote to adopt the Town Council capital expenditure policy as follows. Capital expenditure defined, any item or goods of $10,000 or more, and with it, you wanted the or out of there, excuse me, right, before I read that? Let me just make sure it still didn't, for some reason, still not out of there. And with an intended useful life of 3 years or more, regardless of funding source. That's basic definition. And then further added to that, we've included all capital expenditures, known as CE, require prior approval by Town Council. The relevant department head, through the town manager, shall obtain prior approval for a capital expenditure. Any changes, including reallocation of funds from previously approved capital expenditures to other uses, shall require prior approval vote by Town Council, regardless of funding sources.
Second.
And this is a lot of what we talked about earlier tonight in terms of the project, if it's a capital. This is pretty much clearly stated in our charter. It was reinforced by the attorney when we were discussing the transfer restriction policy. So we just wanted to have it as something defined, especially the capital item. That's not defined as 10 in our charter, and that is what standard accounting procedures, according to our accountant, usually refer to capital items as. So for future reference for all counselors and anyone else, if there's ever not clarity, this would be on the books as being what we understand it to be. Right. So that's my explanation. Councillor Steves?
Just for clarification, so when we vote this, where is this actually going to be found? Makes sense to throw it in the
I
rules
would
and
imagine it
regs.
should be in multiple places.
Yeah.
First off, all departments should know about it, but it should be in this wonderful book that we're keeping. How's that wonderful book coming along?
So this is the question. So we found out in these discussions in the past that there was a wonderful book created by the Executive Secretary, Yvonne Torres. So that book is in place. Any new policy as we adopted on the agendas will be added into that book. So it is in place and it's dated for when the policy is going to be, so we could track it down easier in the future.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries. Throw in the pen. And we've made it to 32, Councilors Forum. We'll start with you, Councilor Claire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through congratulations to all of the Southbridge High School graduates from this past weekend. Make this super quick. Get out and vote on the 12th, next Tuesday. And the last thing I have are the Art Center at 111 Main Street. They're doing their annual free art classes starting July 9th to the 13th. And then again, the second session is from July 16th to the 20th. It's free to the public. For the age groups and the times, just give Miss Dolores a call. Her phone number is 508-987-1476. It's a great service that they do to this community. It's well attended, and the kids love it. So that is all I have, and have a great week. Thank you.
Councilor Fresco.
Yes, just three things really quick. First of all, congratulations to the class of 2018. Not only in Southbridge, but we also have other students that do go to other schools, and they still are part of our citizenship and town, excuse me. So congratulations to them. But I do have to say, it was awesome to be at graduation. One of my favorite moments was the backflip. One of those kids was so excited before he got his diploma. He just did. I was scared, but I was sitting next to Councilor Nash, and I said, "Good thing he landed that thing." But he landed it. He was excited to be able to receive his diploma. But one of the things that I've had the privilege of going to 4 out of the 5 last years of the graduations, and just looking at graduations and in general, this was one of the largest class in over 10 years. at 128 students is an incredible thing. And like our chairwoman has said, to have 103 of them already committed for their future is a huge accomplishment, both to parents, community, educators. So I just want to say that. Also, I reiterate, get out to vote, do your homework. And then the last thing, through the town manager and to our DPW director, I know it has been stated today that we are short-staffed, and you know, they do excellent work with our fields. But one of the things that has recently happened is girls softball has resurrected in Southbridge, and girls softball is going to be hosting playoffs. Our Little League girls softball team has made the playoffs for a league that's only been their team. This is the second year, and this is a very huge accomplishment. And I know that we have an Adopt a Park, and we want the organizations to fix the fields. But in this case, you know, the Southbridge Little League doesn't have the proper equipment to be able to drag that softball field. So they have a divisional playoff game coming on next week. So I know it's a request. It's something that I hope that we can accomplish, because we're going to have other towns coming in looking at that complex. And I know that it is what it is, and we did invest some money there today, but if we can see if the DPW can help the Little League in regards to dragging that field and making sure that for that playoff game, they can have the proper equipment down there to just maybe one or two guys. I don't know, but
What is the date?
it's next weekend.
Next weekend?
Yes. So
Okay.
I don't know if we can squeeze it in. I know it's a tough request, but again, they just made it to the playoffs. So again, it was one of those things that if they make it to the playoffs, they're going to be hosting. So it's a huge accomplishment just to have girls softball again in town.
When you say next weekend, this Friday, this
No,
Saturday?
no.
Or the weekend after?
Next week.
15th.
Next week.
16th, rather?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it gives
Yes.
us a week and a half.
Yes,
or
correct.
so.
It's
Okay.
not this weekend,
Yeah, make
it's
sure
the
we-
following,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So they're going to be finishing off the regular season, and then next weekend coming up. So if we can get somebody to drag out, and if we can get a crowd there to support girls softball, and they're, you know, it's a great time. Those girls are playing really good. And it's an accomplishment to see that resurrected. And it's the farthest field towards the woods. So if we can get that, it would be a huge burden lifted off the Southbridge Little League, but also get the proper equipment. I know that we're short staff, but anything to make our town look good in front of other towns, and Southbridge beating them too in softball, it's a good thing.
We will do our best to accommodate your request, Councilor Carrasco.
Thank you.
Can I just ask on that note, do we have the equipment ourselves to drag the fields? Or is that something we have to hire out for? We do have something we could... Okay, I'm just curious, okay. Because otherwise, I was thinking you were asking for, like, which is fine, but we needed to know that before now.
Not new equipment. And unfortunately, it can't be moved to another facility due to size dimensions and the
that's
age
fine.
group that's
Yeah.
going.
Just want to make sure we actually have what we need. All right. Okay, Councilor Morales.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I would also like to congratulate our Southbridge class of 2018. It was a very beautiful experience. My favorite part was the student with the mom, the wheelchair. That was just kind of got me tearing up a little bit, but it was such a nice experience to see a few students with disabilities, big smiles on their faces, walking across the gym, you know, to get their diplomas. It's great. Bittersweet moment as well. My sister's moving off to college, thank God. So yeah, it was just a beautiful experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ever since I've had the privilege of being on town council, last year I chaired PPP. I'm now on PP subcommittee with as a member, not a chair, but always from fire and PD, it was catch them on the street. Thank you very much for your support, Counselor. And my response was always, someday you're going to come save me. Well, last Thursday I had two firsts. The first time I ever rolled a heavy piece of equipment over, and the first time I ever took a ride in an ambulance. And lo and behold, when I looked up, there were two young individuals there, a young lady and young gentleman, both who had stood in front of us, and we had approved a matter of months ago. And the young lady looked down at me and said, I need your name. I said, well, I'm Mark DiPietro. You were in front of me about a month ago. I voted for you to get on. She said, well, you look a little different now, covered in mud and so forth. But absolutely, you really don't appreciate till you experience it, the compassion, the professionalism that these folks provide, and let us not take it for granted. It's always a penny pinching year for us, the public safety. Kudos to the fire department, the paramedics, and the PD, and I experienced it firsthand, and what a great bunch. Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilor Mann?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I would also like to congratulate the Southbridge High School students of the class of 2018, also the Bay Path students of 2018, and all other students who live in Southbridge that graduated over the weekend. Congratulations. So, thanks.
You had your own as well.
I did.
Child
Yes, my daughter.
Quite a busy year for council. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. First of all, Councilor DiPietro, I'm glad that you're okay. And I will tell you that I'm really grateful to hear that some of the new hires for first responders responded so quickly and efficiently and professionally as we always would expect. But I'm glad it wasn't in your shoes, because I'd be scared to death riding in an ambulance. It's one of my biggest fears, next to clowns. But tonight I'll echo the same thing that everyone else has said, and that is big congratulations to the graduates of the class of 2018. It's a privilege and an honor to attend graduation and also the awards ceremony last Wednesday night, where a lot of money was given away in the form of scholarships from some very generous local sponsors, and I'm sure that everyone up here would extend their gratitude for such generosity. I'd also like to just take a quick minute and point out that in the same vein of the school department, I want to send some thanks over to Maureen in the superintendent receiver's office. She is always so good to deal with. She's quick to respond, and when I call up requesting information about 20 minutes before I need it, she always has it and gets it. So Maureen, thank you for that. I know that there's some data that's available now on school choice and charter school enrollment from 2017, and appreciated that she had that information pretty readily available. Also want to just make a quick note that tonight I voted no on two items, items 17 and 18, about amending votes, and I didn't want to have any confrontation or long discussions during the agenda items, but I said what I needed to say during the special town council meeting, and I wanted to leave it there. I do appreciate the opportunity that the chair afforded me to speculate after the fact, but I think I said enough. Thanks to the residents on Charlton Street that reached out to me and those that actually spoke with me as I walked for about an hour a couple of days ago, just checking out a few things. I'm going to be following up with you, and I will reach out either through the police chief or traffic commission on some suggestions that have been made. I hope that the public knows that you should reach out to your town councilors. I would hope that we're your first line of defense or offense if you have concerns, questions, comments, or if we can be of assistance. The town manager's office gets very busy, but those of us that are sitting up here are elected to be at your service. That is our first priority, and I guarantee that everyone up here agrees with me. Finally, I want to thank the town manager for, once again, and as always, responding to my questions and requests for information in response to his bi-weekly report. As I think many folks would know, I'm one of the first ones, and that's not putting myself on a pedestal. I can't wait to get my packet on Thursday nights, and Yvonne usually expects me about 10 till 5, and I'm always early. But I go through that with a fine-tooth comb, and rather than bringing questions to the dais, I appreciate being prepared, and I would ask the same of town councilors that are sitting up here. In the past, questions have been asked about that bi-weekly report while we're here. we have adequate opportunity to review our materials and bring those questions to you. So thank you for always answering and getting me the information when I need it. And what's more, I will thank everyone up here for having an efficient meeting. It was a big meeting for 3.5 hours, but we got a lot done. And it's a nice, pleasant atmosphere up here tonight, which I'm very, very grateful for. Thank you.
Councillor Steves?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick things. First off, I wanted to also say congratulations to the high school students who graduated and any of the various any of our town residents who are either college bound or leaving college right now, because there's far more than just Councilor Manna over here. So if you've had a chance to graduate and you're going to graduate school or whatever, congratulations to you too. A couple of announcements of things that are coming down the pike. If you're interested, on Thursday, this Thursday the 7th at 6:30, Rob Adams and Rita Sciano are doing some music at Jacob Edwards Library to kick off their annual raffle. On the 6th, on Wednesday, there's supposed to be a continuation of the medical pot hearing. Obviously, as Councilor Carrasco mentioned a while back, the next Tuesday, the 12th, is Election Day, so definitely please get out there and vote. It's really important this year. On the 20th, there will be a special public forum. It's not a public hearing; it's a public forum where you can learn some more details about what's going on with the zoning update, because it's a rather long process. We're about halfway through it at this point, and it can be a little confusing. So if you're interested and you care about how things are going to change in the way we're using land and so forth, June 20th at 6 p.m. here in the chambers, will be a joint meeting with the Planning Board and Council to do that. And let's see, our next council meeting date is officially going to be June 11th. However, we also have an executive session tomorrow night at 6, and we also have a special possible special council meeting on the 14th. I'm not sure, is that scheduled yet?
So I just want to clarify, so we will be meeting as a special meeting, but it'll be one agenda item, that'll be to vote to go into executive session. So I just want to clarify, it's not a meeting for executive session, it's a vote first. Right. That's the proper. So I just want to make sure so that everybody knows.
Is that the June 11th meeting?
No, that's tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. That's tomorrow night, a follow-up from the last meeting, the last executive session meeting we had.
Our June 11th meeting is our regular
another council meeting here, because
second meeting?
Yeah, there's just so much that has been brought to our attention. Not to mention tomorrow night there'll be a DPW meeting, as it was mentioned earlier. At 6, there's about 9 items. Those items will be on the June 11th, which are necessary before June 25th. Along with anything else, because we have not done all the appointments. They have not been brought forward. So the idea will hopefully be to get at least half the appointments or so done on the 11th so that the 25th isn't completely blown away either. So there's just a lot of stuff.
Don't we usually do appointments after the elections?
No, the reappointments have to be done by June 30th.
I thought it was
It's just being all brought to my attention. So.
Because we changed the date of the election back 2 weeks a couple of years ago. So that's what I'm
No, the council has always sat at the beginning of July. The first regularly scheduled meeting is when the council.
Right, but the appointments used to be after the election.
They're through June 30th.
It's always one of the meetings in June.
These aren't the subcommittee appointments. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I know, there's a lot of feedback.
These aren't the subcommittee appointments.
Okay, well,
yeah, they're all through June 30th. Just like I didn't.
See you on the 11th and the 26th.
I see you 3 times a week until the end of the month, right? So I apologize. It's nothing I'm just trying to get the business done because there's a lot of business.
Gotcha.
So. And that was the other thing that the manager had mentioned, something about the 4th, but nothing came to me for that request. So I imagine the 11th may have an executive session in and of itself in regard to some other items. So there's a lot of possibilities floating around. Gotcha. So I sent that notice out last week, I believe, I sent a whole notice with dates to try to update you as much as possible with potential dates to keep your calendars as open as possible so we can get through this. I'd rather not have them either.
Right.
Councillor Steves.
Madam Chair, would it be possible? I've been kind of weeding my way through the audit, and would it be possible to have the auditors here to have a presentation on them so they can kind of explain what we're looking at for one of the meetings?
We can do a lot of audits. Now, yeah, that was actually
or subcommittee, either way, it doesn't matter to me.
Right. Okay. Well, we can discuss that generally. Yeah. We can find out whether they're available and how that works in. I was hoping to get inspections, just for the record, too. I've gotten a few phone calls. There are, we've implemented those new inspection fees and inspections now that we actually have bodies to inspect the multifamilies, 3 families and above, and there are fees involved, $25 a unit, and some people are questioning as to why and how, and they don't quite understand. And I did speak with Mr. Burlingame, and he was willing to either do something with the cable, perhaps. That would be a great informative thing, but also to come up and talk to the public. So I should have said that earlier. It hit into my head when somebody mentioned something else. So our citizens have questions. We try to get it answered here as best as possible. Okay, sorry.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? It's unanimous.